Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for the Technology Revolution of the Food Tech Industry, a conference hosted by Deep Knowledge Analytics, the deep tech-focused analytical subsidiary of Deep Knowledge Group. My name is Franco Cortez, Director of Deep Knowledge Group's longevity-focused analytical subsidiary, Aging Analytics Agency, and I will be your host and moderator for today's talks and discussions. Innovations in the food tech industry is a new direction for Deep Knowledge Analytics and its parent consortium, Deep Knowledge Group. It is a vertical seeing rapid rates of development and technological disruption, and we expect to see it populated by an increasingly large number of tech-focused startups in the years to come. The food tech umbrella covers all stages of digital and technological activities related to food, from production to distribution and consumption. Its constituent companies have come to incorporate and rely upon a range of innovative technologies to streamline their operations and boost output. So today we will be hosting our talks and discussions around the implementation of innovative and emerging technologies in the food tech industry and how that has changed the traditional legacy approaches that once characterized the food industry. Today's event will focus on recent developments in different specific subsectors and case studies in the food tech industry, as well as spotlight its foremost challenges and opportunities. We will be hearing from a number of industry thought leaders and executives working at the forefront of food tech, each of whom will be presenting their latest developments and achievements, followed by a Q&A session to explore in a more dynamic manner the present state and near future of this emerging field. To begin today's talks, we will be hearing from Yuval Kanfi, co-founder and CEO of AlgoCart, on the topic of the future of food shopping. Followed by Nyamwineri Emeka, CEO of Kitovu Technology Company, on how AI and data science can help Africa build resilient food systems. We will then hear from Zach Oganian, CEO of G7G, on implementing AI and digital capabilities to transform consumer expectations into experiences. Zach will be followed by Matija Zuli, CEO and founder of Agrivi, on digital agriculture as a backbone of food safety and stability. Then we will next hear from Artem Elmuratov, co-founder and business development director of Genotech, on genetics and personalized nutrition. Followed by Luther Leowen, co-founder and CEO of Price Pally, who will be speaking on efficiency of alternative food systems in African cities. Next up, we will hear from Deepak Rajmohan, CEO of Green Pod Labs, on emerging technologies around supply chain optimization. Followed by Dr. Ilan Samish, founder and CEO of Amai Proteins, on the sustainable future of precision fermentation, sweet and other alternative proteins. He will be followed by Herman Sitkauskas, CEO and co-founder of Understock.me, who will be delivering his insights on B2C recipes for the B2B world. What can we learn? We will then hear from Gian Lorenzo DeSantis, industry liaison and operations executive for Cover, on the need for middle stream technological innovation for a sustainable food system. Next, we will welcome Julia Bondurek, Vice President of Business Development for Deep Knowledge Group, on investments in food tech industry and optimization of operating models. And we will finish off today's talks with a presentation by David Kanar, founder and chairman of Nutrition Innovation, on the use of food as medicine. Following today's individual talks, we will bring everybody together to facilitate a Q&A and roundtable discussion, again, to delve into some of the topics of today's presentations with a focus on the opportunities and challenges of the food tech industry, in a deeper and more dynamic manner. Today, Deep Knowledge Analytics is also launching its newest open access special analytical case study, Global Food Tech Landscape Overview Q4 2021, available at www.dka.global. As part of Deep Knowledge Analytics' efforts to distribute the most actionable fruits of its analytics in a free, open access manner for the benefit of all deep tech and emerging technology industry stakeholders. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speaker for today to the floor, Yuval Kenfi, who will be presenting his insights about the future of food shopping. Once again, Yuval is the co-founder and CEO of AlgoCart, a startup developing the next generation of health and nutrition personalization for the future of shopping. AlgoCart was also recently named one of the 11 most innovative food tech startups in Israel in 2021. Yuval, it's a distinct pleasure to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Franco. Thanks everyone for inviting me over. It's really a pleasure to be here. It's also nice to see a very nice Israeli representation, Ilan. I think you guys were nominated most innovative startup last year by the same competition, so thumbs up. Anyway, enough about us. Nice to see everyone here. So as Franco said, AlgoCart is about the future of food shopping. We're developing health and nutrition personalization for the next means of shopping that are to come. However, this is a very encapsulated talk about the future of food shopping, just to give you kind of the framework of how we see food shopping evolving into the many digital channels that are going to come and that are emerging. There is no one way to see the future. It's all about guessing, and every research said something else, but we have a very good scope into what's going to happen. And it's exciting. So first, I want to start with a very brief kind of overview of where has grocery shopping been and where is it going. So we're looking at a chart of in-store grocery shopping versus online grocery shopping. In 2019 and today, the in-store grocery shopping, a standard grocery trip to the grocery would take about between 40 to 45 minutes. Whereas the online grocery in 2019 was about 3%. This is all in the US, by the way. And it was forecasted to reach about 10% in the United States out of the entire grocery expenditure by 2025. Here we are in end of 2021, it's already in 12%, and this is the very modest research. We are going to see online grocery taking a larger and larger chunk of the entire grocery spend, and it's going to be at least 20%, again, very modest by 2025. And this is because online is not just the website anymore. It's a whole lot of means. Whereas the in-store trips are going to be shorter and shorter. I don't know if it's going to be actually 15 minutes. Some research says 15, some research says 20. But what we do see is frictionless shopping, no checkout. So we're pretty much going to walk into the store, pick up what we want, and go out. Grocery shopping is going to change, and with it, the entire food shopping and food consumption. At AlgoCart, we've defined 4 major pillars of what food shopping is going to be consisting of. One is going to be consisting of multiple touch points. I will get up in the morning, in my bedroom, I will see that I ran out of orange juice, and I will say, "Hi Alexa," that is by my bed, "add orange juice to my cart." I'm going to go down to the kitchen. I see that maybe I'm going to run out of milk, and I'm going to add milk from the kitchen screen, from the fridge screen. It's going to be a smart refrigerator. This is already going on in the States. Samsung have launched a smart fridge that does that. On the way to work, we would be running out of protein bar that we maybe eat in the car, and we're going to add that into the cart from Siri. We will have the smart cart, the online, the mobile. Sometime along the week or the 2 weeks or a month, we will be finalizing trip, but it's never going to end. It's going to be consistent throughout the day. It's happening in fashion. It's happening in gadgets. It's going to happen in food. It's already started. So we call this the never-ending shopping journey. We're going to delve into that a little bit more. The second thing you're going to have is one identity, because we're going to be clicking and shopping small batches of food from so many touch points throughout our day, throughout the course of our life. Every one of those touch points need to know that this is Yuval shopping, because I want the same experience, whether it's price optimization, health optimization, or anything else, everywhere I shop. So the Alexa and the fridge and the store would all need to know that this is me. So we're going to have technologies coming in that are allowing this. Next is frictionless and personalized. Why? Because we're not going to spend this 45 minutes, or in Israel, this is majorly 2 hours in the store comparing price, comparing taste. It's going to be so seamless. The experience itself is going to have to be frictionless and personalized, or it just won't be. Consumers don't want healthy. They want healthy for me. They don't want tasty. They want tasty for me. Everything is optimized today. And the last pillar that we have identified is going to be a lot of deep tech coming in. We'll see a few examples shortly. It's going to be computer vision and AI and machine learning and sound recognition and NLP, natural language processing, and a lot of data. And all of this is going to come into the very, very traditional and legacy industry of grocery. Diving a little bit more into the pillars, let's talk about the multiple touch points. So as I said, this is the never-ending shopping journey, and we're going to interact with a lot of appliances that we don't know that we can imagine that we would shop through or interact with. Every appliance, and I intently wrote that, every appliance is a potential gateway to shopping. It can be my smartwatch. I can maybe, it's already taking my pulse, it's taking my heart rate. Why wouldn't it order good food or supplements for me? So we're gonna be interacting with a lot of touch points, and let's see some of those touch points. This is just a few upcoming and emerging trends in the food and grocery shopping market. And I've marked the market trend for each of them. So they're all in their billions, they're all climbing consistently. So we see the smart cards. If anybody doesn't know what a smart card is, those are computer vision equipped cards in the store. They already have it in Amazon Fresh stores. Instacart just bought a company that does that. And this is a cart where you add stuff into your cart and just go out, and the store knows what you put there. So that's climbing. The smart refrigerators are in a very, very consistent and steady climb, and we're all going to shop through the refrigerator. Make no mistake, the refrigerator today has cameras in it, outside of it. It has profiles for family members. It does a lot of things that we didn't even know that we could. Obviously, the food delivery apps and the meal kits are on the rise, but also the smart speakers are going to be a major channel. And as you can see, one of the images I put here, because some people don't feel convenient shopping with voice, what's called conversational commerce, Alexa has also screens, so people can actually use Alexa to buy, and this is how they get you to use this speaker for your shopping. It's more engagement. More engagement means more money to the retailer, basically. Other means of frictionless shopping is on the left here. We see on autonomous stores. Autonomous stores are something that's going to be the next big thing. Remember what I'm telling you here? Those are stores in the size of a gas station convenience store. You're going to scan an app. You're going to take what you want and go out. You will be charged for what you took, and you don't have to speak or engage with anyone. It's like a kiosk that you're frictionless. The Amazon Dash Wand, which replaced the Amazon Dash. If anyone knows what Amazon Dash was, it was small buttons that you had next to many items in your home. they discontinued it and just made the one you can scan, you can say, and this is a portable Alexa that is hinged on your fridge and you can just scan everything. The idea is that I'm running out of rice, I would scan the rice and it instantly orders rice from Amazon or Amazon Fresh or whatever. And obviously the shoppable content, meaning the meal planning and the shoppable recipe. So, and there are going to be more touch points, but all of these are new and emerging touch points for shopping food. Some of them are just coming in, but they're coming in hot, and some of them are already on the very steep rise. The next one is, as I said, is one identity. We're going to have one identity throughout all those touch points. Also, as written here, privacy is going to be an issue. Privacy is going to be something not everybody's going to waive their privacy for that, but people are willing to give more personal data to get better experience. We know that already. Basically, this is a must-have for the future of shopping. I'm not going to expand into that. A small example of that is the evolution of the identity we use for shopping. Is once we just had the club card, we bought with the club card. Tesco or whatever retailer had a lot of data on us. They knew what we bought over time, what we prefer. Then there was the online grocery, which when we use where we sign up in the mobile or when we use our phone for that, automatically this is a personal interaction. And then on Amazon Fresh, we have Alexa. Alexa in the store. I don't know if you know, but if you go into Amazon Fresh, you can sync into your home Alexa. And this is the beginning of that one identity spanning from your home into where you never thought it would be, which is in the grocery store. Personalization and frictionless shopping. Say again, we're gonna spend just a few minutes, a few seconds, sorry, for picking out an item. We're not gonna compare too much and filter and sift through too many products. It's all gonna be add yogurt, add rice, add milk, and it would have to know us and be frictionless. Obviously, the experience would have to be tailor-made for each individual user, and we would be needing to give some feedback on that. So there's going to be a lot of ways that whatever system we use would collect feedback. We can't say how, but it can be product. It can be product-wise, as if they ask us for feedback, or maybe some on some places they would ask for. They would look at our return rate. I don't know, but we would need to be giving feedback. Some personalization in the store. Here's some examples. If you're going to Asda, one of the biggest retailers in the UK, there's a very cool wine personalization rack there using just an iPad. Basically, everybody knows red wine, white wine, and we know nothing further, at least me. Here, you're gonna put in all sorts of preferences and parameters, and you're gonna be recommended a wine that is on the shelf, connected to the inventory. It's happening with the fresh food as well. So personalization is coming already into the store, and it's just when it's a screen in the digital space, it's just so obvious that it's going to be there. And lastly, and here I'm really finishing my talk today. Lastly, is the deep tech. So technologies are coming in that we haven't imagined that would ever go into grocery. Deep tech is already very much widespread. Israeli company called Trigo just went into, they do frictionless shopping. They install cameras on the ceiling, and you just go into the store, pick out what you want, and go out. They're already the biggest retailer in Germany and the biggest retailer in the UK. LiDAR, which uses laser to gouge where I am and my movements. This is used for frictionless shopping in those capsules that I showed before. Let's see some examples. On the upper left, you see the computer vision recognizing people, recognizing their movement, recognizing what they pick off the shelf, what they put back in the shelf. We see heat recognition, and something that's very, very popular becoming right now is supply chain optimization. We have software that recognizes shortages and shelf to help with the planogram maximization, to help me know when I've run out of some product and instantly getting alarmed on that. The smart carts by Caper use computer vision and weight to know what's in the cart, and this is how we actually get the frictionless shopping underway. That's it. This is just 4 pillars that we have identified that are coming in hot: the multiple touch point, the personalization, the one identity, and the deep tech. And Walmart just invested heavily in TikTok. Why? TikTok, grocery, because everything is gonna be a gateway to food shopping. This is just to open you guys' mind. It's gonna be a very interesting future on that. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Yuval, and consider our eyes and minds opened. Indeed, it was a very insightful and exciting talk, and we especially appreciated the brand recognition of deep tech and the use of that in an explicit manner. We're big believers of that here. So thank you so much. For anybody that has specific questions for Yuval and AlgoCart, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. I am delighted to welcome our next speaker for today to the floor, Nwa Chimere. Apologies, Nwa Chinemere Emeka, who will be sharing his experiences on how AI data science could help Africa build resilient food systems. Mr. Emeka is a global driven innovation and technology enthusiast, passionate about the transformation of Africa into the global food hub. He's also a fellow of the Social Innovation Program, a recipient of the Total Startupper Awards for Innovation and the Nigerian Innovation Awards, both in 2016. And he's also a multi-award winning serial entrepreneur who was part of the 2015 Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program alumni program, and was named part of the Africa Prize shortlist of the Royal Academy of Engineering in 2018. Besides all that, he's the CEO of Kitovu Technology Company and a writer and public speaker with interest in governance and advocacy. Nwa Chinemere, it's a distinct pleasure to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So let me start by posing sort of a rhetorical question. What does AI and data science have to do with babies? Because today I'm talking about how AI and data science can help Africa build resilient food systems. And in starting, I like to say that a few years ago, I became a proud dad. That's my daughter you are looking at. And then there's something peculiar that happened. I prepared for her arrival. I bought everything I needed to buy. I spent time reading, getting information on how to be the best dad she could ever have. But then, despite my preparation, when she finally came, it seemed she spent a good portion of the time crying. And I was at a loss. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what she needed. I only could figure out by trial and error what it is that she wanted part time. Was she wet? Was she hungry? Was she running temperature? It was just trial and error. Now, in a sense, agriculture, especially in Africa, is like me running after my kid, trying to find out what she wanted part time because I couldn't understand the language that she was speaking. And in part, that is sort of like the characteristics of agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa, where productivity is quite very, very low. Now, it is not because there is anything peculiar about sub-Saharan Africa. It's just the fact that the food system needs to be reviewed. And the way to do that is to listen to what the food system is saying. Like my daughter, she was saying something, I was just not hearing it. And that is like an analogy for us to consider and look at food system. But first question we need to ask is, why? What's the need? The truth is, in a few years' time, because 2050, it's not that far away any longer, we'll need to produce about 60% more food to be able to feed a projected 9.7 billion people. Now, with 17% of Arab in Africa, it means that it's very, very important that productivity in Africa is improved. Because if it's not done, then the fate of the entire world hangs in the balance. And so, because of this challenge and considering increasing soil degradation in the midst of climate change, if we do not find alternatives to optimize the food system, then we would be facing one challenge that will be much more greater than what most people might consider what the world's greatest challenge is today. Because I know if we ask a lot of people, they will say maybe it's probably a mutual assured destruction from nuclear weapons. But I assure you, there is no greater threat than that posed by the possibility that come 2050 will not have enough food to feed the population. Now, the way we can solve this problem is by applying data science and artificial intelligence across the food system. But when we say food system, we're talking about all the actors, all the interactions, everything that happens across the entire food value chain, from inputs to the supply chain, production, livestock, how the food eventually gets to the processor, how it gets, retailed, how the consumer finally gets it. All those things are producing vast amounts of data. Every interaction is producing vast amounts of data. And in a way, because they are producing those sets of data, they are talking to us. So for instance, a farmer in one corner of Nigeria grows some crops. There is information out there about what quantity he's growing, about what variety it is that he's growing, about what time it is going to be ready for harvest. Now, the aggregation of all this information, this data, and analyzing it will help somebody in the logistics space to plan, to know what sort of investments to put in there. It will also help for proper planning as to what kind of storage infrastructure needs to be in place. Now, if just this part is tackled, in Nigeria alone, about 40 to 60% of post-harvest losses that happen annually could be curtailed by just understanding what farmers at each point is growing, the timing. Now, if we understand all the components that makes up the food system, it would help us to understand how to begin to apply this to them. And in a way, this is at the heart of what we are already doing at Kitovu Technology Company. Now, as of today, some of these are things we are doing, but I want to point out areas that, data science and artificial intelligence can be applied to transform Africa's food system. First is in the area of fertilizer recommendation. Now, most times in Africa, a farmer, if he chooses to use fertilizer, just gets any fertilizer. He doesn't do soil test. he may not even be able to afford it. So he gets fertilizer and he applies it to his farm. He has no idea what the need is. For all intents and purposes, the soil may be saying, I need nitrogen, and the farmer is giving it phosphorus. So there is a complete mismatch between what the farmer is applying to the land and what the nutrient requirement is. Now at Kitovu, one of the things that we've been able to do is to build a system that collects different kinds of data, soil, field, and market demand data, which is linked to remote sensing API, and then analyze those information, and then tell the farmer not just the type of fertilizer to use, but the quantity to use and the variable application rates. The implication is that there is optimization in the production of the farmer. And as a result, farmers who work with us have been able to increase their yields by over 30%. Now, if you consider that as of today, crop yields in sub-Saharan Africa is about 30% of global yield averages, you will see the impact that this stands to make. Now, another area where this can be applied is in the area of plant health analysis, which is essentially carrying out crop health audits, trying to understand in real time what the crop performance is, identifying areas where there is urgent need for intervention in terms of how well the crops are doing. Now, at present in Africa, there is rapid rural-urban migration. So a lot of the large amount of labor available to farming in the past is no longer that available. So there is urgent need to leverage AI in providing e-extension, so that farmers can easily understand what to do on their farm. If they have issues around weed control, the right pesticide, the right herbicides, they can get information in real time, what is happening on their farm. 2 years ago, farmers had a lot of their grains ravaged by fall armyworm, and it's been a recurrent, occurrence. But what if we could build an integrated disease early warning system that can easily alert, farmers in different areas when there is a breakout of diseases in real time, and what to do and how to manage it? This will go a long way to increase productivity for the farmer. There is also the areas around assets and supply chain management. Now, in Africa today, there is a lot of gap between the needs in terms of farm and post-harvest infrastructure. But there is not enough data, there is not enough information out there that says these are the areas where someone can easily invest, and these are the expected returns on assets deployed. But by applying data science and artificial intelligence, a careful mapping of the infrastructure deficits can be done in such a way that it will give insights, it will give people, would-be investors, areas where they could easily invest in, to optimize their investments. The same goes for, all the interactions around the supply chain. Now, the final area I want to touch on is in the area of smart irrigation and fertigation. Now, I mentioned how, farming in Africa is hugely affected by climate change and increasing soil degradation. Now, it is one area that is needed very, very urgently, but it's not going to be something that is just done, the traditional ways, considering that water is a huge resource that needs to be managed properly. Smart irrigation means that there will be investment in data, there will be investment in getting information using IoT technology. so that in real time, the moisture levels in the soil can be monitored and moisture can be gotten to the plant just in time. So it will cut down wastage. The same way, nutrients can be applied to the soil on a needs basis. And these are some areas, it's by no means exhaustive, but these are very, very crucial areas where this can be applied to optimize productivity in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, it's not enough to say we need to put these things in place. In itself, talking about the need to implement AI and data science technology in food systems, it's not enough without taking cognizance of some of the challenges. Chief of that is the inadequate data available. It's going to really take a lot to collect and map data across Africa, because it's the foundation upon which any data science or AI application is going to work optimally. The level of reliability of the information an AI system gives you is based on the correctness and the adequacy of the data you have. And that is one area where there are huge challenges. And then there's the issue of last mile connectivity. A lot of the productive areas, right, in sub-Saharan Africa do not really have that last mile connectivity. And so it's still a huge challenge. And of course, you cannot do these things in isolation. There has to be willingness on the part of the different players in the ecosystem. They need to buy in if this would work. And finally, the needed talent. A lot of companies are doing a lot around talent development, but a lot more still needs to be done if the necessary structures, the necessary foundations needed to make this work would be put in place. Now, particularly on Nigeria, as of today, Nigeria has about 81 million of arable lands, but only 41% of it is cultivated today. Now, it's a huge incentive, not just for agriculture, but for sustainable agriculture that leverages data science and AI. 60% of our population is under 35 years. Now, this is a population that is a bit conversant with technology, which means that the population that can easily learn and know how to leverage such systems is there. Of course, we have over 67% urban population, and it's growing, which also means that along the value chain, especially at the demand side, the consumer side of things, there will be huge opportunity for such a system. Not to mention that we have a nascent technology center with the rise and proliferation of different startups that is leading to the development of talent. And all this will provide the opportunity to leverage data to mobilize finance, infrastructure, and markets. When we put all these things in place, we will be able to help build a resilient food system for Africa. One where wastage is cut down, where productivity is optimal, and where smallholder farmers would no longer be, the bulk of people who are financially excluded. And that will guarantee a food future for Africa that helps the world produce enough food for themselves. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Inwa Chinemere. We're so happy that we were able to have you come on board and provide a very strong social innovation and social impact angle to this session. So very well said, and thank you very much. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker to the floor, Zach Oganian, CEO of G7G, who will be delivering a talk on AI and digital capabilities to transform consumer expectations into experiences. Zach is a drinks industry entrepreneur with over 12 years experience in brand ownership and international development. He's also a director at Kinahan's whiskey company, one of the world's oldest and most innovative whiskey brands, which he helped rebuild, and the CEO of Geneva-based G7G Group, which again is focusing on transforming the world's heritage brands with leading technologies ready for the next generation of consumers. Zach, thanks so much for joining us today. A delight to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Franco. Our approach to digital technologies, AI, and all the high-tech capabilities is mostly from the consumer perspective at the moment. So what Generation 7 Group is doing is our focus is on preserving and transforming the world's heritage brands for the next generation. What this means is that there is a very big part of the industry, the product industry, fast-moving consumer goods industry, that is very much imploding. So there's a lot more and more of the product, but there's a lot less and less of authenticity and traceability. So what our group is focusing on is owning and operating invaluable, authentic heritage brands, but to ensure that they are, and some of the brands that I'll present today is over 200 years old. And so to ensure that these brands are ensured for the future of the next generations, the next 200 years, we're focusing on implementing existing technologies to make sure that the brands are suitable for the next generation of consumers. So the key kind of focuses for us is, as I mentioned, for all of our brands is heritage and transformed into modernity. So we take all the authentic core of every single brand, and then we make it relevant in a modern way. And I'll make some examples later on. And then, of course, authenticity and craftsmanship is at the very forefront of what we do, because this is exactly what's going to be most valuable components of any brand, of any product for the next generations. So technologies will also allow us to use sustainable practices easier, especially as it comes to social sustainability and responsible consumption. So one of the main brand that we'll use today as an example of how we're implementing all our technologies is Kinahan's, which is a 240-year-old brand, one of the oldest whiskey brands globally, and originally one of the key innovators in the whiskey industry that helped shape up the whiskey industry as we know it today. So by way of a background, because it's very important that those that don't follow consumer trends as far as the premium and fast-moving consumer goods are concerned, I have to summarize the past, let's say, number of decades and the evolution of the market as a whole. Towards the late 90s or so the better part of last century, consumer goods within our categories and the spirits brands were mostly mass market. So predominantly they were price driven, availability driven, and education and cultural approach to brands and to consumption was non-existent. Then very slowly, and every one of you will notice this because I'm sure you see it more and more through brands changing on the shelves in front of you, craft and quality has started to become very important. And one of the drivers of this, of course, is that for a number of decades now, consistently, there's a very sharp trend towards consuming less, but consuming better. And this trend actually is true to many industries, not only beverage industries, but also food industries. And so slowly from craft products are going and consumer driven trends are going into what we'd call mass luxury. And this is mostly where you would see very much a lot of the trends behind brands of consumers going for brands like Zara, as well as brands like Louis Vuitton, kind of in the same space, and so a lot of these brands are starting to intertwine, and so mass luxury, so high quality products but at an affordable price, are becoming more and more important. But where we see this whole trend is going is that cultural brands and digital brands are becoming really the brands of the future. As a matter of fact, what we are absolutely convinced about is that brand owners and brand producers, manufacturers that do not operate their own digital capabilities in-house will become, in the next 10, 20 years, will fast become almost a manufacturing base rather than anything else, because what is becoming increasingly important is direct to consumer interaction. So so it is at the top of this slide where we come in as Generation 7 Group to start building heritage brands that are underwritten by digital capabilities. And so again, to emphasize, it is the sharp trend in everything going digital is almost non-reversible. And so the consumers are really becoming digital consumers, and this is only going to increase. This is going to become faster and more available. Technologies are going to become cheaper. So this is where the future of all the premium brands and products is going. And so the overall digital adaptation globally is extremely consistent across board. From in fact, some developing countries are way ahead of developed world too. So and this idea of phygital, which is pretty much one of the biggest problems that everybody's trying to solve in food and bev, as far as the technology is concerned, is the transition from offline into online and back, is one of the biggest problems to solve. So implementing digital capabilities for us is really the key focus today. And so what's next for digital consumers as we see them now is very much the technologies that you would have all heard of, but they haven't really been implemented at this consumer level with fast-moving premium consumer goods. And so in the next 5 years, what we'll see is absolute digitalization of everything as it comes to regular everyday products. And of course, artificial intelligence underwriting all this digital capabilities is what's going to fast forward everything and at the point of implementation. So, and this is exactly where we are with our brands that are part of Generation 7 Group, and Kinahans is a very good example of it. So one of the things that we've done is we've digitalized everything. So every asset, everything you can think of as far as the brand is concerned, the operations is concerned, has been digitalized. So the products, the barrels, as it comes to digital integration, even the brand ambassadors, because one of the things that I'll show you next is our this is where AI is coming into our operations primarily, is that our brand ambassadors are becoming digital, and so which fast tracks a lot of the things that we do. And so creating these digital assets has really allowed us to minimize our overheads and maximize the pace of our growth. So being able to communicate the brand and operate the brand and brand activation digitally allows us to operate equally, if not better, during the lockdowns, allows us to operate faster during different seasons, allows us to really translate our activity globally in a split of a second. And so again, everything we have is all fully digital. And then I'm now going to show you how we then implement it into into the virtual reality. And the beauty of this future that we're building is that every asset that you see is equally and instantly from 3D into VR, into augmented reality. And so the interaction and the added value as far as the experience is concerned, and this is where in absolutely every industry the consumers are all drawn towards, is immense. So one of the things that we are due to launch shortly for all our brands is the digital ambassadors that are underwritten by artificial intelligence. And so we call it digitalization, is because what we're doing is we're actually due to use real ambassadors, the real people, as a basis for the digital ambassadors. And then we are translating the knowledge of these real people into the database for the digital brand ambassadors to be able to drive the user experience, to be able to drive education, and the opportunity for social sustainability, to which I'm going to come in a moment. But in terms of education, one very simple example I can give you, which is really invaluable, and this is how a lot of the brands will fast track their ability to grow and add value to the consumer in a positive way, is assume we have a brand ambassador based in a specific region, Far East Asia. And so this brand ambassador is physically only able to give an X amount of talks to make an X amount of impact within the region. And so when you translate this into digital and you give the ability to the consumer to have this personal experience with the brand at a split of a second in the comfort of their own home or anywhere else for that matter, it really is fast tracks our ability to educate people. And this is where it goes towards one of our very important long-term roles, being social sustainability, because one of the biggest problems within our industry, be it an ultra premium brand or a mainstream brand, is a lack of education as far as sustainable and responsible consumption is concerned. And this is where we can implement AI and the data that we are able to have an early intervention through a range of complex triggers that we are able to then generate through this. And so what does it mean to us today? So the early implementation of augmented reality technologies, which allowed our consumers globally during the pandemic time to experience our products, has increased by 3 times our export abilities, our ability to open new markets, because we're able to communicate products, to communicate experiences very easily and very fast. And so in terms of projected impact in the next 12 months from the time of implementation of our digital assets, is we are expecting tremendous growth in terms of interaction. But most importantly, what it allows us to do is to create experiences and get consumer and user product adaptation feedback a lot quicker, effectively instantly, versus the traditional rest of the industry, which would take between 6 and 8 months between the product launch, campaign results, post-campaign feedback, and the analysis. And so this is, of course, one of the incredible differences that AI would allow us to do, because a lot of this we expect would be automated eventually. So just to put in a perspective, you have to use your imagination, of course. But what we're expecting to do is we're expecting to evolve these technologies. So we start from a certain level of aesthetics, as well as a quality of AI and the intelligence of our digital assets, our digital ambassadors and digital humans, and then evolve them into a slowly, completely hyper-realistic next generation ambassadors for the product, which will effectively turn not only into ambassadors per se, but also into educators, into sustainability practitioners, for every product that that we operate. So NFTs, of course, is one of the explosions that has happened in the past 12 months. And again, as part of all the other digital technologies that we use, NFTs also become one of the front runners of what we do. We have initially focused our NFT technology efforts to creating enhanced experiences for our partnerships where we collaborate. So to give you one example, one of the experiences we created was a collaboration with during the British Grand Prix this summer in the UK, and what we've done is, as part of our premium product range, we've created an experience which was integrated into a menu and allowed people to access a collaboration that we've done digitally with a Formula One car. And that, of course, then translated into NFTs and was sold and then resold. And so as a result of this, we've received over 50 offers from 12 different countries to do a collaborative project of this type, and we're in the middle of a major one now. So, but this is just to explain that in terms of brand building, in terms of consumer interaction and added consumer experiences, this is way beyond mere whiskey product. This is more into intertwined lifestyle culture, and the speed at which we're able to enhance our heritage brands is simply limitless. And needless to say, the commercialization of this has got no boundaries also, and this is really just the beginning for non-fungible tokens. And so just to kind of put in a perspective a little bit as a next step, of course, all these assets, all these digital assets will slowly trickle down into a metaverse that we are also working on. And effectively, the opportunity is that for our consumers to be able to exist within it. And we all know that some of the major social media platforms are going in this direction as well, merely because, again, going back to the original points of the presentation, everything is becoming digital, and consumers are really welcoming it because it is making their life easier. It is making products more traceable and more easier to access and understand. So what we expect is going to happen for our brands is they're all going to eventually become part of the digital reality, being part of the enhancement of a brand proposition and product proposition rather than a replacement. And so one of the, I guess, the punchlines I'd leave you with is very much what we heard from the first speaker. We too are expecting that the future is going to be breathtaking. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Zach. Very exciting stuff. We couldn't agree more with you on the fundamentally necessary as opposed to complementary role of AI and digitization, especially how that ties in with culture and lifestyle-based branding and brand ownership, direct company to consumer engagement, etc. And I personally found the VR and AR angles and the stuff you're doing within that realm quite exciting. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank.
A reminder to all of our attendees today, if you have specific questions for our speakers, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We'll do our best to account for as many of those as possible during the Q&A and panel discussion later today. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Matija Zuc, who is the founder of Agrivi. He also serves as its CEO with the vision to change the way food is produced and positively impact over 1 billion lives. Agrivi helps Fortune 1000 companies across the globe produce nutritious, healthy, and sustainably grown food by digitizing their crop production and agricultural supply chains. And today, he's here with us to discuss the topic of digital agriculture as a backbone of food safety and stability. Matija, it's a pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Franco, for introduction, and hello, everybody. As we have a global audience, I can welcome everybody with good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and glad to be here with you today. So I'll try to share our experiences with digitalizing agriculture across the globe, and how we see it as a backbone of food safety and sustainability. So just a few words about us as the company to understand from which angle are we speaking from. So as a company, we empower farmers and agri-food companies to produce healthy, nutritious, and sustainably grown food by using digital agriculture solutions. And today, as you all know, we have, and you could see that from some of the previous speakers. So what is important with agriculture technologies is that the last decade we spent in market education, and we could see a lot of categories of agri-tech products arising and providing new value to the market. And what is very important that if you take a look at all those technologies from customer point of view, from a farmer point of view, from a food company point of view, then you can see a lot of solutions that are a lot of isolated islands. And as a farmer, you need to log into 10 different systems a day and extract the data if you want to make some holistic decision. So farm management software as a product category within agri-tech segment took the role of system of systems to connect all the data on one place. And this is what we have been doing for the last 8 years within the industry. So Agrivi is a farm management company that has built one of the market leading farm management platforms. And we are a process based tool, and you'll see that from customer examples and case studies that I will try to showcase. But what is very important that it provides the integration of all the data on one place to make holistic decision making and provide focus on what's actually important, and that's solving actual pain points in your daily life. Today we work with customers in 100 plus countries across the globe. So we like to say wherever something grows, we have a customer there. So we work with companies like Nestle, Driscoll's, Kimberly-Clark, or other companies from food and agriculture value chain, whether this is a smallholder farm, whether this is an enterprise big farm, food company, trader, food processing company, or agribusiness bank, or even government. As a company, we are recognized as one of the global leading companies within farm management segment. And today, I would like to share 3 case studies, basically, to start thinking about what are the actual processes that happen today, where we can actually apply digital agriculture as a technology and solve those issues immediately. Where we see a lot of challenges today is on farmer adoption side, and waiting when farmers will be ready to adopt all the tools. And I think that we need to start to take a look at things from a bit different angles and try to address from more holistic point of view and a collaborative point of view to bring in the technology. So one of the challenges we tackle is product recalls. And what happens with product recalls is that today, when you can see that in the news quite often, you have big news that some big company, big brand is recalling their product because of pesticide residues or whatever reason that is from the market shelves. And actually, that's a huge problem for the entire food industry, as the average cost of product recall is around $10 million in direct costs. Plus, there is a lot of indirect costs that come from brand reputation costs, lost sales, and PR costs that companies deal with when they try to do that. So what we do as a company, we work with food companies that are sourcing crops from farmers, and that want to mitigate risks, risks of product recalls and ensure that food safety is highest. So we have a customer that is a baby food company. So they provide they process fruit and vegetables like apples, carrots into baby food, and as you can imagine, that baby food is very sensitive product category, and customers demand the highest food safety there. So to make sure that all the suppliers are fully compliant with all the food safety requirements there, one of our customers is basically bringing our platform, that is farm management software, to growers to help them fully control application of crop protection products. So one of the sourcing strategies that this company has, so they have responsible food sourcing strategy with all the criteria that their suppliers need to meet. And one of the criteria is that farmers cannot use preventive spraying applications. So this means that they cannot spray apples 25 times in average, which is what is the industry average, but they need to basically monitor all the fields, monitor crops, and if they detect that actually there is some actual risk, then they can make application of crop protection products, and they can use only crop protection products that are allowed within a specific country and that are allowed by the company as well. So how it works, so the company brings in our digital agricultural platform as a part of their supply chain platform to all growers they work with. They provide all the best practices, how to grow exactly with which economic practices to meet all the quality parameters. But farmers also receive various insights, like one you can see here on the image below, where on each field where there is a risk of pest or disease, farmer gets alert, and that exactly on that field they have risk of specific disease, and these are possible products they can use for spraying. And when they spray, they register the spraying, so the company has full traceability available. And through that, the company fully controls the application, helps farmers to meet all the responsible sourcing criteria, and mitigates the risk of product recalls. And they decrease the risk quite a lot on the percentage basis. The second example is also related to the food processing company, one of our customers as well, and it correlates with food waste. So as we all know that 1/3 of all agricultural products are wasted, and majority of that happens as well in the processing and transfer phase. So one of the examples is we have a customer that produces sweet corn in a can, and it is a premium brand. So what is important with premium to ensure the premium quality of sweet corn is that the time from harvest, from combine to the can final product is as short as possible. And to ensure that, this customer has built fully integrated supply chain. So around every factory they have around the world, they contract growers within 65 kilometers to make sure that they can collaborate with them, that they can provide agronomic services to them, and that they can basically operate a lot of their fields. So one of the challenges they had is that within 4 hours from combine to can, they didn't have time to do the quality testing. And they sampled the cans later on after they were produced to make sure that it meets all the food safety requirements. So what happens is that if they detect too high residues within a specific can, they need to throw away the entire batch. And throwing away entire batch means that entire harvest on a specific field on a certain day is being wasted. So it's huge financial loss, and it is huge food waste. So completely opposite to sustainability. But this was acceptable loss for them to ensure the premium price, and this is how it works today in the industry. So how we deal with that with that problem is that, again, basically they bring in our technology to growers. Growers get all the recommendation how to grow it. They provide agronomic advisory through the platform. But to deal with this specific challenge, basically, we provide a dashboard, dashboard that showcases when it's safe to harvest a field. And basically, the agronomist who is in charge of harvesting activities sees green or red. And green means today this field is safe to harvest, and red means it's not ready to harvest. So we try to provide complete decision-making support to companies to mitigate losses. And basically, with this kind of dashboard, we reduced food waste, and it was multi-million euros food waste per factory for 90%. So this was the result. And the third example that I would like to share is connected with the application of climate smart practices. So we are working on a climate smart rice production with a customer in Myanmar, where they are. So they work with 4,000 smallholder farms. And as you can imagine, working with smallholder farms is often challenging because there is a very diverse level of education, level of technical capabilities. So they have agents, agronomic advisors that work with those farms. And you can see them there on the image above. So this is the image when we did dedication to them, how to use our farm management system to track everything that farmers do. So each one of these agents visits a farm, and they have a central knowledge base within our product, where they have for entire season the agronomic practices that are fully in line with climate smart rice production. So each of these agronomists, when they visit the farm, they take a look of everything that farmer did in the past day. They basically see all the satellite imagery, the weather conditions, the pest risks, give guidance to farmer, take the data from farmer, as those farmers are unfortunately not on the level to use the technology fully standalone because of the business skills primarily. They have smartphones, but because of all the skills, so they're just receiving the information at the moment. And afterwards, basically, that agent is also tracking the data and ensuring that those farms meet all the climate smart rice production conditions. So the platform allows them to ensure full traceability of rice production, to report about climate smart rice production KPIs. That is very important for their funders, basically. And in the end, without traceability that is being collected in the platform, they wouldn't be able to export. So they're able to get Global GAP certification from the data they collect, and they're fully eligible to export to Western markets as well. So through these three examples, I wanted to showcase how digital agriculture can be brought basically to farms with the support and collaboration of the value chain, where the value chain is actually subsidizing the cost of technology to farms and financing that, because even on the US market, the latest surveys show that two biggest obstacles for adoption of digital agriculture technologies are first, cost of technology. So farmers need to bear the cost of technology, and they have a trouble to do that. And the second is lack of education and understanding of the value of technology, where they use it better if somebody is there to support them about the usage of technology. And this works well, especially in collaboration with companies they work with on a daily basis. As a company, we are proud that our work impacts even 12 out of the 17 sustainable development goals. We are impact-driven company, and we invite you, if you have projects that deal with digital agriculture, let's build a sustainable future together. Let's connect and speak how we can support you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Matija. Very exciting stuff for all of our viewers and attendees today. A reminder that if you have any specific questions for our speakers, including Matija, please pop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We'll do our best to get to as many of those as possible during the panel discussion a little bit later. I would now like to welcome our next speaker to the floor. Artem Elmuratov, co-founder and business development director of the Genetic Center Genetech. He's also a researcher at the Institute of Biomedicine Chemistry. And he's also a member of the advisory board for the School of New Economy, MACS, in addition to being a curator of the lecture cycle Genetics in the Orator Club. Artem's here with us today to speak on the topic of genetics and personalized nutrition. Pleasure to have you today, Artem. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much for introduction, and thank everybody. I'll be happy to talk today about genetic and personalized nutrition. I have only 15 minutes, I assume, so I will be very brief because the topic this topic of personalized nutrition and genetics is very wide, but I'll go just with the basics and just a few examples to mention what's going on right now in the field. Yeah, first of all, it was mentioned that I'm founder of Genetech and researcher in Institute of Biomedical Chemistry in Moscow. In a few words, I'll want to tell what our company is doing. Genetech is a leading genetic testing company in Russia. We have our own laboratory. We provide direct-to-consumer genetic tests. We do some medical diagnostics, test COVID-19 testing, and also we do projects for several institutions and companies, for some food companies as well, Russian Pepsi and Danone, Russian branches of Pepsi and Danone, our clients, also a few institutes that are doing some research in nutrition and food. I also works with us on different topics. Almost everybody knows that there is a very basic rules how to eat healthy food. Yeah, we have Harvard healthy eating plate that can give you very good and correct guidelines what you should do when you choose your food for today, when you choose your dinner or breakfast and so on. And if it was enough, then no personalization is needed. But of course, it's a basic rules. You should follow them mostly, but there are some details that you should consider to choose the real healthy eating plate for you. So what I believe that people are different, and there are a lot of projects going around the world to understand the genetic differences of different people. That's a picture from All of Us genetic program in US, and everybody knows that, of course, we are humans. We are 99% similar for our DNA, but anyway, we're still different, and there is no one solution for everybody. You cannot give a specific meal to everybody and expect that they will be happy, that they would be healthy, and so on. Of course, there is some personalization. If you fly over, when you have a distant flight, of course you can choose some specific meals, but mostly they're based on some ethical issues. They can put out some ingredient that you cannot digest well. But of course, real healthy plate, real personalized nutrition plate should consider much more information. And this information is not just information from biology. It can be information about your habits. It can be information about some ethical issues, about your activity and so on. But I believe we should consider, and now we have a technologist to consider information about your microbiome, about information about your metabolomics, and so on, and of course about your genetics, because it's a very basic of what we are about every human. Very briefly, let me remind you that human genome, DNA, consists of very long sequence of 4 typical chemical elements of 4 typical chemicals. It's ACGT nucleotides that go in one after another, and just like with letters in a textbook and a cooking book, you can write a huge text that will tell what meals you should proceed with this cooking book. The same is with your genome. We have in every cell of our body, we have a very long sequence of these letters, and depending on which text they produce, we produce different proteins. And proteins can do a lot for our health, for our body, and for our nutrition as well. The big problem about human genome is it's very long. It's more than 3 billion letters. Even you can multiply it by 2 because we have 2 copies of every chromosome. But anyway, even 3 billion letters is a very huge text. It's like a whole library that you should read for every person. And for a long time, it was not, these technologies of human genome reading were not available. Only 20 years ago, a lot of people together, a lot of scientists sequenced the first human genome. And it was a big, great project, and it was a big success for researchers. It took more than 10 years. It took more than $3 billion to sequence the first genome. But after it, there came such a genetic revolution that human genome were much more faster and cheaper to read every year, and the technology of genome sequencing they spread faster and it developed faster even than IT technologies and the computer technologies that mentioned, like Moore's law here. And together with more available technologies of sequencing and genotyping, new industry came out. It's industry of direct-to-consume genetic testing. And it was I think like 10 years ago, it was not so popular nowhere in the world. Even in US, I think it was more popular among some very small percentage of early adopters of this technology. But right now, there are tens of millions of people in US who are genotyped, who have their genetic tests. There are a lot of people around the world who do their genetic testing and who get their information about their genome. And I think it's very important to know that information to adopt it for your nutrition, to personalize your nutrition. There are some very radical examples of why it is important. Maybe a lot of listeners have read the great book from Daniel Case, Flowers for Algernon. And the main character there, he had a problem with his intellect, and there was such a big problem that he was hardly, he had differences with his work and his place in society, but because it was only because he had mutation that connected with phenylketonuria, that's a genetic condition. If parents don't know that the child has phenylketonuria, then if the child eats just usual food, his intellect is going down, and it can lead to big problems for such a kid. But if you know that from the beginning, from the birth, if you know that a person, a child, have phenylketonuria, you just change nutrition. It's there is a special nutrition when they take out phenylalanine, and you can grow a healthy child. And it's just because only one mutation in a whole gene. If not so radical examples that can influence a lot of people in the world, and I think lactose intolerance in some countries it's a problem for most of adult people. In Russia, there is almost half of the adult people have some sort of lactose intolerance. Me as an example, and it's only one letter in your genome that can lead you to be lactose intolerant. There is a similar example with coffee. Caffeine metabolism can depend on genetic markers in your DNA. So that's an example. What we did in Russia. We tried to not just tell information to our clients that they have this lactose intolerance or they have some predispositions that they should drink less caffeine, but we stepped further. We have a biggest branch of premium retail called Azbuka Vkusa, and we partnered with them. So when we tell the person that he or she has lactose intolerance, we do not leave them with that information. We provide them with specific products that can be lactose-free, and we give them links and motivate them to start eating that lactose-free products for them to feel more comfortable and to be more healthy. I think a big problem that can attract a lot, that can be important for a lot of people is body mass index, and how do you can lose your weight, and there is as well some mutations that can lead that if you have specific mutations that you can weigh more on a diet with high saturated fat, for example. And but the next step of genetics, I just will briefly tell where genetic is trending. Is genetic is trending from going from where you just have one mutation and or one genetic variant, and you have specific phenotype. It's going to the situation when you have a lot of genetic variants across the genome. You study them and you try to understand for one person how they can lead to some specific phenotypes, including the ones that connected with your health, with your nutrition, or your body mass index. For example, just very fresh articles that we did with our collaborators from Denmark. We together we made a model when you study almost 1,000 genetic variants across the genome of one person, and you build a model of score how this person can be, which body mass index can this person have depending on their genetics. Of course, genetics can influence not only what you should eat, it can influence on what you want to eat. For example, there is a mutation in one of the genes. If the person have two specific copies with one genotype in one of genes, it is shown in studies that with this genotype, you do not like the taste of pork and of bacon, for example, and it can influence how you taste the specific meat. And there are also a lot of other examples that genetic can influence how you taste food, how you smell it, and of course it can influence your nutrition habits. I think I have like 1 or 2 minutes. I'll try to be very brief. Genetics is not about DNA of you, it's also about DNA of microbiomes that you live with. And it's a very trending thing in nutrition. You can study microbiome, billions of different bacteria that live in your body, specifically in your gut. And depending on what microbes live in your body, you can correct your nutrition plan and your ratio. There are several startups. One of them is Viome. It's a great company that do such tests for customers. Also, as an example, I want to mention that not every genetic test works good or do very useful suggestion, but they can be fun. Yeah, there was a very fun company called Viome. They tried to choose the best wine depending on your genotype. It was a good idea, but I think they did not succeed well in telling your in their business. So, and of course, there are a lot of companies, a lot of startups that do personalized nutrition. There are several maps when they try to collect best players in that field. And mostly startups focusing, I believe, focus on genetic, microbiome, and some biomarkers to do personalized nutrition. But also, of course, there is in personalized nutrition, I believe there should be startups in IT, startups that do good information about products, about your preferences, not only biological, but any other. And what I want to finish with is, of course, it's not only about genetics. Our body is very difficult, and you should consider a lot of information about your health. It should be genetics, it should be microbiome, gene expression, and so on and so on. And if you will consider it together with your medical doctor, I think that will be very good for your health and mostly for disease prevention. And at the end, it will help you to live a longer and active life for a lot of years. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Artem. Very insightful stuff. And I have a personal interest in personalized health, nutrition, etc. Through Aging Analytics Agency. So it was of much personal interest to me as well. Thank you. I would now like to welcome our next speaker to the floor, Luther Lewoyan, co-founder and CEO of PricePally.com. Luther is an entrepreneur with a passion for social impact, focused on leveraging technology to build innovative business models and platforms to serve the next 1 billion people in Africa's fast-growing digital economy. He's joining us today to speak on the topic of the efficiency of alternative food systems in African cities. Luther, a pleasure to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I've learned a lot from the previous speakers. Thanks again for having me. I'll just go straight into it. Like my previous Nigerian speaker also, Emeka also spoke about the scene, the food system in Africa and the challenges that we have. I'll be speaking to those challenges and also how we are solving that problem at Price Valley. I would like to start off with a few facts that would paint the picture of how big this problem is and how imperative it is that we have to have an alternative food system. First, if I don't know if anyone knows, but Africa has the highest, rural-urban migration in the world. So it's posited that very soon, over half a billion people will be living in Africa's cities. But for a fact, I'm not sure we are ready to feed those people. Even right now, there's a lot of shortage, across African cities in terms of food and all of that. And, starting off with the problems, it boils down to the beginning of the whole thing, from the seeding of, the farmer planting, hoping to harvest in the future and all of that. There are problems all across that value chain. And it's very disheartening because we have the lands, we have the manpower, but we lack, very basic things, from mechanization to best practices to education of these farmers and all of that. So because of all these problems, we have a very cumbersome and highly inefficient value chain that consists of a lot of individual actors who are randomly playing their part without much cohesion or organization. So that at the end of the day leads to, the farmers who are doing the work being broke, not having enough to show for their efforts. And it also leaves the consumer paying more, especially in the cities. And this is not sustainable now, and it will not be in the future, where we even expect that, the population increases significantly. In the city of Lagos, for example, where I am at right now, access to farm fresh food items is expensive. And not only is it expensive, it is stressful to get those food items. In Lagos is a city, the most populous African city, close to 20 million people, by actual data. Online, you probably see less than that, but the population is increasing and exploding daily. So in the same Lagos, you would see where a situation where the farther you live from the food sources, the more expensive the food gets. And the way Nigeria is designed, in a sense, when it comes to agriculture, most of the farming activities happen in the north and the north of Nigeria, and those food items are brought down to the west and to the southeast and other parts of the country. So right from the north, there are layers of expenses that go on each product, that when it lands in the major markets in Lagos, it's already expensive. And when you want to move those items to the inner cities, the inner areas of Lagos, you have to pay more. The consumers there at the end of the chain there have to pay more. It could be as high as even 25%, higher than the landing cost of the items in Lagos. So food is very expensive, and it's just very hard. According to the World Food Program and other bodies, it's posited that many African cities, the families, middle-income families, spend up to 60% of their income on food. That gives you a picture of when a family earns $1, 60 cents of that dollar goes to food only. That leaves you with 40 cents to spend on other important things like transportation, education, many other things that families have to deal with. You would agree with me that that's a very, very tough situation, but that's what it is at present. And it's even worse for the low-income families. They spend up to 90% of their income on food. That leaves them with nothing to spend on other important things. These are part of the big problems that Africa is facing, especially Africa's largest economy, which is Nigeria. The inflation we experience in Nigeria is so much tied to the low supply of food, because there's a high demand and there's a short supply. So a lot of money goes into acquiring that a lot of money is trying to pull the supply, and that also is a critical factor where we have double-digit inflation year on year, and it's continuing to grow. But what's really crazy is the fact that you have all the elements that can make the food system work, because you have the labor, you have the distribution chain, you have transportation. You might argue that they are in very undeveloped positions, but they are there. So it's a matter of how do we make it work? What we have? How do we make what works? What we have work? That's like where the question we need to answer is. And if we answer that question, our aim is actually should be to actually develop an alternative system that gives consumers access to farm fresh food items at affordable prices, no matter the distance, no matter where you are, no matter where you reside in the nexus of the city. And to cap it all, the farmers or the producers of these food items have to get a due reward for their labor, so that there's more activity in that end. Because when farming is viable, you will see that more labor will go there, more investments will go in there, and you can have something way bigger and way more efficient than what we have currently. And that's where we come in at Price Valley. We've been trying to solve this problem since November 2019, and we, myself and other co-founders, ran into this problem to solve after an experience between me and my wife. I got married in 2018, and it was my first time living alone and having to buy food myself and my family and all of that. And I just used to drop the money for the food. But my wife, who is very meticulous with data, she would always write down the expenses and all of that. And month on month, I was looking at these expenses, and it was just ridiculous. Like you spend what you spend last month is what you spend this month is 25% or even 30% more than what you spent last month buying the same things. Within that short period of time, it really got my attention, and that's why I got personal with this problem and trying to figure it out, reading and exploring and doing my research, and we eventually were able to come up with a solution. So, and that solution, checking out the value chain, you see that at the end of the day, everybody within the value chain works for the consumer, for the end consumer. So the question was, where do we start from trying to solve this problem? And the obvious answer was demand. We need to first study and make demand efficient, and that will influence the start point of things. And what I mean by that is that our plan is to aggregate as much demand as possible from the cities, and with what we get from the demand, we are able to leverage on that demand to get the best possible prices for the consumers, and also to pay the farmer directly, like they are serving the consumers directly. Because when you are able to take away the very many inefficient layers within that system, then the true actors in that system are duly rewarded. And that's what basically Price Valley is about. So to that extent, we first launched our web and app platform that enables people to buy food together in bulk, or to share bulk food items sourced directly from farmers, and sometimes from wholesalers when we can get those to these farmers. So that gives us a leverage because of the volume we're able to aggregate, gives us a leverage with pricing from these farmers or these wholesalers, and we're able to pass on that leverage to consumers, and pay the farmer what they are worth as well. So the solution we are very keen on, like I said earlier, is demand aggregation and matching that demand with supply. And we've seen the effect of that. We've been able to drop prices for very important products like tomatoes, peppers, things that people buy a lot. On Price Valley, you get it cheaper than you get in the local market, in the open air market. You get it fresher because it's direct. It's we have a quality control layer that makes sure that the food items that get to people is very, very correct. So I also need to add that after we've done this the web and app and all of that, We're also looking at the mass market, you know, the majority of the people who can get, you know, data, who can get on the internet to make orders. We're also looking at the framework of, you know, developing like an agent network where they have individuals representing Price Valley that they can buy from and pick up their orders from. So a lot of things going, a lot of ways we can solve this problem with demand aggregation and supply matching is what we look into from time to time. So this is like how we do it. You would see, compare Price Valley model to what you have at this traditional model. It's more direct. We are the only ones in the middle where we aggregate this, supply. We process them and we give them, do a last mile delivery to the consumer and or whoever is buying. We started off with consumers, but we've also seen businesses taking advantage of what we are doing at Price Valley: hotels, restaurants, food eateries, and all of that. And we're even looking at, the resellers to also, give them this advantage. Because compared to the traditional model, you have several layers, and those layers cost money before they get to the consumer. So what Price Valley is trying to do is shorten this, value chain and bringing out giving the best value to those who actually are, doing the right thing within the system. And all this, activity that we have been doing, it's been basically on 3 pillars, which is technology, where you have the aggregation of demand and matching with supply. Then from that, we also have a lot of data. We've had about 2 years worth of data on what people buy, the food items that are moving, when they buy, the sequence, when they're in season, when they are off season. A lot of things, a lot of information that we are gathering day by day, and with that, we are planning for the future. Then the last part is partnerships. Without partnerships, we can't really get this done. We need a lot of, we have to work this together within, Africa and even internationally for, bodies who are interested in working with us to solve this critical problem. We are very open to it. And, I would also like to add that, it's a matter of time. This is not a problem that would continue. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of, giving it our best, giving it our all. And it's not just Price Valley. It's a collection of, people, forward-thinking entrepreneurs who want to really solve this problem, because there's a lot of this problem to solve and a lot of reward in solving that problem, because you are looking at a market that's very what's the word now? That's not connected. And once those connections come in, you would see a lot more efficiency. What we are looking to build at the end of the day is a platform where demand is aggregated, supply is matched. The players in between are, very efficient because they can, get data on what products. For example, the people who move last mile deliveries for us and the first mile delivery from farmers, they get, a day before when they're supposed to, go for this, to pick these items up, they get information that, okay, you have to be in this state. We have so number of tomatoes and all of that to pick up, that we are seeing some form of efficiency already that is already dropping prices to the consumers who use Price Valley. And I would not lie that it's a very tough thing to solve. And, my Nigerian colleagues will definitely attest to that. But it's very doable and we are committed to it. Thank you very much. My name is Luther. I'm the CEO at Price Valley. If you want to reach me, my email is luther@pricevalley.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Luther. Once again, very happy to have you here to emphasize the social innovation and social impact.
Great to be here.
Event. So thank you. I would now like to welcome our next speaker for today to the floor, Deepak Rajmohan, the founder and CEO of Green Pod Labs, an agri-tech startup developing active packaging to minimize food waste and losses. Deepak also has a master's in food science from Oklahoma State University and more than 7 years experience in the food, biotech, and agricultural fields. Today, Deepak is going to be speaking on the topic of emerging technologies around supply chain optimization. Deepak, a distinct pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you so much. Thanks again for the opportunity. Great to be here. It was wonderful to listen to other speakers as well. So today's topic, what I'm going to cover is on the emerging technologies and fresh produce supply chain optimization. So I just wanted to put a pause and then give the current challenges within the fresh produce supply chain, and then look at how the emerging technologies can minimize those challenges. So looking at major problems right now, one of the biggest challenge both in developing country and developed country, it's like right now fresh produce are traveling for about 500 to 1,500 kilometers from farm to consumer. These, I mean, on average, fresh produce, half of its shelf life is spent on transport and storage, which is a huge concern for retaining the quality and retaining the shelf life. The other side of it is like the supply chain of fresh produce is very sensitive to weather changes, and that's in particular in developing countries that's been a huge problem. Countries like India, when there's rainy seasons, the fresh produce pricing gets dynamic and gets higher. So and the supply is also very much disrupted. Currently, there's a poor visibility and transparency in the overall fresh produce supply chain right now. So the data is not transmitted from one part to the other. There's been a lot of inconsistent data capture and data putting it on one platform as well. That's been a major concern in developing countries, and in developed countries, there are few technologies worth addressing right now. Supply and demand forecasting has been a huge challenge as well, and that is costing us more losses and more challenges on the way. There's no proper fresh produce quality and safety standards right now, and that's also becoming more dynamic along the way. There's a lack of supply chain infrastructure and packaging solutions in major developing countries. So these are several challenges which is like currently in supply chain, and how emerging technologies are addressing this supply chain is very critical. So these supply chain challenges are contributing to about 33% globally. About 33% of fruits and vegetables is lost before it reaches the consumer, and overall food waste is accounted for about $1.3 trillion economic base. And food waste in general contributes for about 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. These are massive, massive challenges and has to be addressed. So it's not going to be one solution which is going to solve this magnitude of problem. We need to look at multiple technologies and solutions to tackle this problem. And that's where the emerging technologies right now would play a huge role to address all the challenges in the supply chain and eventually minimize the food wastage and food loss. I've looked at a couple of technologies which are very promising and which could disrupt the overall supply chain of fresh produce. One such technology, what we are building at Green Power Labs, is biotechnology-based packaging to extend the shelf life of fruits and vegetables. Apart from that, there are technologies like robots and automation to optimize the overall supply chain. AI, machine learning, and data analytics have been a huge boost in terms of like optimizing the supply chain. And other technologies like blockchain and Internet of Things have been also playing a critical role in this optimization. We'll go deeper into each of these technologies to understand how these technologies are currently adding value and how this could be a future value for the supply chain as well. To start off with robots and process optimization, right? So currently there's been a huge influx in funding and research in terms of robotics to optimize and automate fruits and vegetables grading and sorting. And several robotics have been deployed in terms of like fresh produce packing as well. There's one company, the human robot. I'm just going to play their video. they're building these like robotic arm to help automate and automate the overall fresh produce packaging. This could minimize the errors and the human interaction with the fresh produce. This is going to be huge in terms of like accelerating the farm to fork supply chain and automating that more. And on the other hand, there's been a lot of technologies around the fresh produce sorting and grading. There's one company who is working on this technology. Technologies like these would help us like price the produce better based on the quality and based on the customer who wants a particular quality. And that makes it more flexible in terms of like minimizing the losses. Autonomous vehicles within the warehouse has also been a huge inflow into the fresh produce. The autonomous vehicle, when they come into warehouses, can minimize any damage in terms of like handling the fresh produce in hard way, and minimize the touch points within the fresh produce as well. I think I'm able to hear some noise. Organizers, would it be possible to mute other speakers?
I believe everyone's muted, Deepak.
Sure. Thank you.
Continue.
Thanks. So the other key technology, which is very much emerging and it's disrupting the overall fresh produce supply chain, is like use of AI, machine learning, and data analytics. One key area within this spectrum is like dynamic pricing. So there's been a lot of changes in the overall supply chain, and there are known and unknown factors. And dynamic pricing is one way of like minimizing the losses. And using different parameters like product quality and also like the demand and forecast, supply and demand forecasting, and based on that, planning our overall production and pricing the product based on that is also very critical. The other area where AI and machine learning and data analytics have been playing a huge role is in terms of like supply chain route optimization. Within point A to point B, use of like AI and machine learning. There are several companies working on like optimizing the supply chain and then giving the best route to minimize any spoilage or temperature differences along the way. The technology, what is closer to what we're working on is biotechnology to extend the shelf life of fruits and vegetables, which is a key factor when handling fresh produce. Even though there's like a lot of optimization what we can do, but there's a limitation over what you can approach. So invariably, you have to extend the shelf life of fruits and vegetables to minimize the wastage and losses. So what we are doing at Greenport Labs is like we're developing sachets. These are like small sugar packets like products, which can extend the shelf life by slowing down the ripening rate and minimizing microbial growth as well. There are several other companies working on edible coating and edible wax to minimize the moisture loss and minimizing oxidation. And there are also technologies like biosensors to monitor and control fresh produce spoilage during transport and storage. Blockchain has been another area where there's a lot of innovations going on. So one use case which is very interesting is like building digital supply chain twin, where the physical supply chain touch points and various qualities is being mapped into a digital supply chain mapping, and then that helps you like track all the data points and also simulate a potential worst case scenario and how you can replicate that situation in real life. Use of blockchain and tracking all the data gives you like more transparency and traceability across different value chains, and also that provides the right security and provides the right accurate information for the end consumers. On the other hand, this also helps you track food safety. And as one of the other speaker also mentioned, product recalls have been a huge problem. And if you use blockchain and technologies like that to track the data from farm until it reaches the consumer, It's easy to track back and find any of these challenges and then minimize any product recalls as well. The last technology what I wanted to discuss was Internet of Things. There's been a lot of inflow in terms of like use of sensors to measure quality and freshness of fruits and vegetables. And that gives you the right data to sell the produce on a certain time. So that's the biggest missing link right now, to sell the fresh produce and also process it or store it for a longer period. Use of these sensors in terms of like also grading has been a huge progress. And then there are other sensors and technologies to monitor temperature and humidity during cold storage and cold separation. And that also gives you a real-time alert and provide you all the measures what you can take to minimize the losses and wastage. So those are the pointers what I had. So you can reach me at Deepak at Greenpond Labs, and my company website is like greenpondlabs.com. Really appreciate for the time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepak. The pleasure is ours entirely. A reminder for all of our viewers who might have specific questions for Deepak or any of our other speakers for today, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We'll try and address as many as possible during the Q&A and panel discussion later today. So thank you, Deepak. I would now like to welcome to the floor our next speaker, Ilan Samish, the founder and CEO of Amai Proteins, who launched the company after publishing the world's leading book on computational protein design. He's also a graduate of the Tel Aviv University Interdisciplinary Program for Fostering Excellence, and has a PhD from the Weizmann Institute. Did his postdoc at the University of Pennsylvania, and since then has led a very rich academic career with a focus on protein science, and as a lecturer in genetics, biochemistry, physical chemistry, bioinformatics, and computational biology. Today, he's joining us to speak on the topic of the sustainable future of precision fermentation sweet and other alternative proteins. Ilan, it's a pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Franco. Really appreciate it. And thank you for the invitation. So I'm happy to talk about the sustainable future of precision fermentation, sweet and other proteins, focusing on designer proteins, but this will be only one part of my talk. I'm also a member of the FoodTech committee of the Israeli Fermentation Society. So I wanted here not to give you the regular well-polished pitch about Amai, but to give something which is more on the trends of the field of precision fermentation. So this is just a collection of slides from here and there and not the usual polished pitch. But before I begin, I would like to congratulate Deep Knowledge Analytics for doing an amazing job in their briefing and analysis of the FoodTech landscape. And within this, following what already Yuval said, that there was a good representation of the Israeli FoodTech scene, they have noticed that Israel has 12.5% of all the top FoodTech firms. And this is in a country that is very small. So if you compare this to the size of the population, by far Israel has briefly an order of magnitude more startups than any other place. And if you want to hear more about it, just for the fun of it, I did write at one time the Startup Nation rap, and you're welcome to listen to it. I will share it in the chat later on. So let's move to substance. And we're talking about food, and let's talk about cheese. And cheese is something we all take for granted. However, in the past, in order to make cheese, you thought about different animals helping it. And many of us thought about mice, including some kids who think that the mice are the ones doing the holes. And actually, to make cheese in the past, you took milk and you threw into it the belly of usually a pig, because you needed an enzyme called chymosin, rennet. And today, this enzyme, 99% of the cheese in the world is produced by an enzyme that is made by precision fermentation. It is made by E. coli, Aspergillus, yeast, or other organisms, and we don't know about it because this is what is called a processing agent. This is something that is part of the enzyme industry, which is a huge industry of the white biotechnology, the commodity biotechnology, which is different than the pharmaceutical, the red biotechnology, or the green agriculture biotechnology, or the blue aqua biotechnology. And as the Rethink X very good report has outlined, the world is moving to making more and more proteins by precision fermentation. And the reason for that is very simple. Number one, we cannot sustain the world without doing it. Already now we don't have enough space for all the cows, and it's not sustainable also because of so many other reasons. And also the efficiency is not so good. The feedstock efficiency is 4%, while the efficiency of precision fermentation is 40 to 80%, according to this very good report. And here there is an example of the Pichia pastoris, which is used to make leg hemoglobin, which is done by Impossible Foods. And if you move from well over 100 different proteins which are made by precision fermentation as processing agents, namely they are not part of the label, but part of the making of the protein, and you move from there to proteins which are actually making a part of the ingredient. Today, you only have 3 such things. You have the eye-structuring protein of Unilever, which is actually no longer done. This was done to help mitigate small ice droplets within ice cream. You have the leg hemoglobin of Impossible Foods. You have the beta-lactoglobulin of Perfect Day Foods in filamentous fungi, and hopefully we will be next. There are some other companies that are now in the process of doing so. And just a word about amide. This talk is not about amide, but part of it I'll just use as an example. Amide is about fixing our food system one protein at a time by combining computational protein design with precision fermentation. Our first product that is going to the market is the world's sweetest and most stable protein. And we have in our pipeline specific proteins for the meat, plant, and milk space in order to make products which are tastier, more stable, more cost-effective, digestible, hypoallergenic, and produce them in a sustainable, environmentally friendly way. And we do that by combining several technologies. The first one is called computational protein design, and I'm happy to send my book on the field to anyone interested. And the second one is called precision fermentation. So let's talk a little bit about these 2 technologies. The first one is computational protein design, and why do we need to redesign what is already found in nature? And the reason for that is that proteins are intrinsically unstable, and proteins live in their natural habitat, in their small piece of heaven. Whether heaven is our body, whether it is an exotic fruit in the jungle where you have sweet proteins. However, the mass food market is in extremely harsh conditions for a protein. You need long shelf life, you need very high concentration, you don't have a buffer, and you need to produce it in a very cheap way. And for that, we need to learn from proteins which do live on the edge. And you have life on the edge. You have life in the Dead Sea. You have life in hot springs deep in the ocean, in acidic swamps, and so on. And by mimicking proteins which live in such conditions, using computational protein design and combining them with technologies, with functionalities which are good for us and found in regular proteins, you can make new designer proteins which will really be fit for the mass food market. And then in order to produce them in a sustainable and cheap way, you use precision fermentation. Fermentation is actually the oldest technology in the book. beer, wine, kimchi, yogurt. In all of these cases, you use fermentation, and at the end of the day, you eat everything that is in the fermenter. In precision fermentation, you add a layer of harvesting, and you harvest from the fermenter the white powder. And at the end of the day, our business is to sell white powder that makes people happy. So we have proteins for the plant space, for the milk space, but we are most known for the protein, which is the first healthy, tasty, cost-efficient, and sustainable sweet protein, which can replace sugar in a very nice way. So just to sum up the pipeline, we begin by redesigning or designing novel proteins, which are, of course, proprietary. Then we grow them from a Petri dish to a large scale, and then we make food. These are some of the different types of foods that we have made, and there are many others which are still not under patent, and consequently we cannot show them. And what we do is we do not compete with the diet market. We actually compete with the sugar market, which is much bigger. So in each product, we reduce the level of sugar to a level where the average customer will not be able to distinguish between the full sugar product and our product. In ketchup, for example, this is 70% reduction to of the added sugar. We are good for liquids, for solids such as dark chocolate, for hot applications such as a hot cup of tea, and also for alcoholic and non-alcoholic applications. We have numerous collaborations, PepsiCo, Danone, Ocean Spray, and several others that we are not allowed to disclose. And in order to make sure that what we have is really good, we have a professional super taster panel, mainly students, very well screened, only the super tasters that taste what we do in a blind way with a statistician following up on what we are doing. So to do that, we have what we call the Pro Protein platform, which is pro people, pro taste, pro planet, pro health, and pro industry. So let's talk a little bit about the industry and this huge revolution of moving to precision fermentation. What do you need to do and what is out there? So first of all, in order to get good techno-economics, you need high yield expression, which is how much time, how much money, how much grams per liter you have, what is the quality, how much energy you need to put into the purification of the protein. And for that, you can do it yourself. We have numerous collaborations also with academia. There are numerous vendors that can help you to do that. And the idea is that your factory becomes a brewery. And just like brewery and beer breweries are all over the world, the only difference is that you add oxygen because you don't want alcohol, and you add a layer of harvesting because you want a pure protein. And if you have a pure protein, from the regulatory standpoint, it is GMO free. You don't need to go through the GMO tracks. And for that, just to take some of the considerations, you want to be free of antibiotics. There are some ways to do that, because in many places you cannot do large-scale growth with antibiotics. CRISPR today is a very easy and convenient way to remove the antibiotic cloning resistance post-cloning. And you want to purify the protein. Of course, you have to go through FDA, so you don't want toxins and other things. And you want also to use purification tools that are very cheap and do not contaminate. In academia, you use a lot of affinity chromatography with a nickel column, which is not good. You basically really want only to filter things using membranes, tangential flow filtration, ultrafiltration, and so on. It's also important to have a cheap media as to the growth, and this is today in the alternative proteins for the meat. This is one of the big things to optimize the media cost. And you want also to purify the protein to a good level, but not more than that, because food is not pharma. And in pharma, you need a very, very pure protein. For example, in Impossible Foods, according to the GRAS application, they have a a purity which is less than 70%, because you can simply eat all the other proteins that come out of the yeast where they make it. So we spoke about the purification methods, and let's talk about one of the biggest issues, and that is consumer approval. Just like with any revolution, you have today something, and we saw it with the COVID-19, where you need to have consumers who love what you do. And today there is a bad name for GMO. In our case, we are GMO free, but this is an issue which is more religious than science. And you need to show that the product does not contain DNA. Most people don't know that when they eat a tomato, they eat DNA. And that's another important thing. And you want to be natural, but it is very difficult to define what is natural, because at the end of the day, you have 100% protein. Even if it is a novel sequence, it's just like any other protein, a necklace of beads called amino acids. And on that, you have discussions, and it's actually new worlds that we are moving into. And then you go, what is exactly novel? For example, the perfect day foods that are using the beta-lactoglobulin of milk, they actually have a patent over the different glycosylation pattern, which is post-translation of the protein. So it's actually a slightly different molecule, but it's all done by biology. So it's made by biology. Is it natural or not? I leave you with a question. You need to answer it. So for that, a year and a half ago, the FDA has decided that they need to get ready for the next revolution, and they made the Institute of Science and Global Policy made a meeting of 56 stakeholders. We have caucuses every day. We had only 2 startups there. There's a CEO of Perfect Day Foods and myself. They spoke about the diversified protein future. I spoke about the language of Food 2.0. And I think that we need, as scientists, to move from being science-centered to client-centered. Just like with hospitals, you move from hospital of the sick to health center, because these are your clients, and you don't want to engineer proteins, you want to design them. You don't want to do recombinant proteins, you want to do heterologous expression, you don't want to mutate, you want to substitute. These are all important terms where you want to really have your product being embraced by the client who is a consumer that wants all the knowledge, but is often puzzled by some of the scientific jargon. And just how you call fermentation-derived food, there is a lot of different names. Flora-based, as Perfect Day Foods call it, lab-made, culture, synthetic. Those are all names which there is still a dilemma about, and actually SynBioBeta, the biggest industrial synthetic biology meeting, is moving now to a new name, which is made by biology. So I have a paper about this field, and I think this is a challenge we all need to address as we go to the market, about the public relations, the misunderstanding, and to get a better consumer acceptance about this disruptive innovation, which at the end of the day is really good for the consumer, as it is sustainable. And this is not different than any other big scientific revolution. And we can discuss a philosophy about that, but we don't have time to do that. We should also discuss a sustainability aspect. And there is a question, what is the alternative? And you also need to understand the waste management, because at the end of the day, you have yeast, for example, or filamentous fungi that made your protein, and how do you handle it? In some places you have an issue because this is called a GMO and you cannot work with it. So the waste management is part of what you need to take into account. Where and what are the rules of this GMO waste? And you also need to take into account that today there is excess food grade fermentation capacity in the industry, but it may need some modifications. But in the future, it seems like we will need much more large scale food grade fermentation capacity, because this field is totally exploding. In the case of AMAI, we have 2 tracks of sustainability. One is a health track. The other one is the fact that sugar overconsumption contaminates air, land, and sea, and affects the lower socioeconomic class the most. And even an investor banks such as Credit Suisse said that without sugar tax, our World Health system will collapse. So just to finalize, you also, of course, have the economics, and actually you have to look on competition and trade secrets and on the IP and on the economy. In our case, we are actually cheaper than sugar in sweetness units because our protein is 4,000 times sweeter than sugar, meaning that we replace a kilogram of our protein is worth 4 tons of sugar, or we replace a teaspoon of sugar with just 1 milligram of our proteins. I can go a lot about the issue of sugar overconsumption and how the 8 different categories fail in taste, cost, health, and product fitness. And consequently, most of the market is still not the diet market, but rather the sugar and high fructose corn syrup. And even these, whether it's sugar or not, those are small molecules which do have adverse effects. In our case, we use big molecules, proteins, which build our body muscles and tissue. They activate the sweet receptor just like any sweetener, but then they are digested to their amino acid constituents, and consequently, they are healthy, and we have all the digestibility data in order to prove this. So just to sum up, we are taking proteins found in plants in the jungle. We never saw the plant, we never saw the protein, we just looked at their 3D structure, and these are very good. However, they suffer from cost stability and the suboptimal sweetness profile. So using these as templates, we redesigned the protein in order to get a cheaper protein, a higher stability one, and one with an optimal sweetness profile. We have won numerous awards along the years. We are active since 2016, and we have an amazing pool of investors and a very strong board of directors. We are now in the final stages of approval within the FDA, and we are having next month a official meeting with them. And just to sum up my part, what we do with this, we take the huge challenge of sugar overconsumption with the breakthrough technologies of precision fermentation and agile integrated computational protein design to present a radical solution, which is the first sustainable, healthy and tasty protein. And actually, sugar overconsumption is also affecting COVID-19, and people who have insulin resistance simply have more gates for the COVID to get in, and consequently, they are more prone to have more serious COVID-19. And just as with COVID-19, we understood that we need preventive medicine of vaccination. Likewise, today, the biggest health challenge of a non-communicable disease is sugar overconsumption. And this is a huge burden on quality of life and also on economics. So after success in curing disease, it's time to cure the food we eat. And for that, you need to design proteins which are fit to the mass food market and produce them in a sustainable and cost-efficient way, which is precision fermentation. Just as an example, stevia produced by precision fermentation is half the cost of stevia produced by agriculture. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to go for any questions.
Thank you so much, Ilan. That was illuminating. For anybody who has specific questions, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We'll do our best to account for those during the panel discussion Q&A a little bit later. I am now pleased to welcome to the floor our next speaker for today, Herman Satkauskas, CEO and co-founder of Understock.me, a new B2B surplus food platform connecting suppliers and manufacturers of food to commercial buyers such as food services, meal delivery services, and charities. Launched in 2020 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the platform was created to help suppliers deal with a huge surplus of food, which was routinely arising at the time during these within the supply chain. Herman has previously worked in multiple roles at different tech startups, most prominently at Host, a UK-based short-term rental service that he saw grow from a team of just 2 people into a global company managing thousands of homes worldwide. Today, Herman is joining us to share his insights on B2C recipes for the B2B world. What can we learn? Herman, a great pleasure to have you.
Franco, hello. Hello. Can you hear me well? Can you see me well?
We can, yes. Audio and video
Perfect. Lovely. All right. So hi, everyone. And first of all, huge shout out to the organizers and also to the other speakers, because yeah, it's always encouraging to see that you have other people and companies working on very similar problems in the world, and there's been quite a few today. So I will proceed with my presentation, and it's all going to be about relaying my previous experience in B2C to B2B with B2B food tech in focus. So let me just give you a few bits about myself. So my name is Herman. I actually come from Klaipėda in Lithuania. I've lived in London for the past 10 years. And pretty much for the past 10 years or so, I have been involved in startups. So all the different kinds. So as it has been mentioned, I've done quite a long stint at House, which was very much a B2C company focused on property management, something to do with Airbnb, short-term rentals. And yeah, I just love tinkering with things. And I also love cooking. So you could call Understock Me, which is my company right now, actually a bit of a passion project. So moving on, what is Understock Me? So we are building a new B2B surplus food platform connecting suppliers and manufacturers of food to commercial buyers. And by commercial buyers, we mean pretty much anyone who buys food in bulk. So we can talk about cafes, restaurants, even charities actually buy from us. And why? It's the answer is very simple: to create something to help our suppliers to deal with a huge amount of surplus food. And you would not believe the tons and tons of food that is routinely overproduced that just arises within the supply chain. And kind of going a little bit more granular, basically the real reasons behind this whole surplus, because everyone thinks of the pandemic. Okay, so food service shut, all of a sudden, distributors don't have anywhere to put this, these huge amounts of food into. Actually, no, the problem is a lot older. It spans decades and decades, if not centuries. Essentially, it's all about how long the supply chain is, how difficult it is to balance the power, because we have everyone in there. We have the producers, we have the farmers, we have the supermarkets on the other side. And, like we've had the pandemic, but then comes the gas shortage, then comes, any other factor that just like completely jumbles everything up. And we just knew that, this visibility is needed. And our dream is essentially to provide this digital infrastructure to use the advances in technology to actually, win this market, produce something that allows, producers to connect to buyers in a much more transparent way. Because at the moment, like, believe it or not, like the issues that the problems that we've actually heard directly from our suppliers are actually quite ridiculous, if not the borderline offensive. Because when you hear something like, oh, well, we didn't know what to do with this, with these 10 tons of anything, it could be tuna, it could be like grain, it could be pretty much any type of wholesale food. And they say to you that, oh, we really wanted to do something with it, but we actually had to pay to get it destroyed. When there's, we're based in London, and we know for a fact that there's 350 food charities just trying to distribute food to the poor. This is quite insane, and this is hopefully where we come in. Essentially, what we're trying to do is build a global platform that brings this visibility and really resolves this resolves this problem. So moving on a little bit closer to the theme of this presentation, which is like, how do we connect B2C and B2B, and what do the two have in common? I'll move on to the team. So I won't go into specific introductions, but if you look at all of us, it's a pretty small team at the moment, but what you'll notice is that we connect people who have experience in very, very kind of like hardcore technology products, and also someone, you know, who's worked in food service, who's built things for food service, who's built SaaS platforms for food service. And this is my very, very strong belief, and it's one of the core points of this presentation, is that you have to really build stuff for humans, whether it's B2B, whether it's B2B. But you know, this was the strategy, and still is, of me building my team and going forwards. So I'm going to move on to a very quick question, and I'm obviously not going to speak to the audience right now, but I would like everyone to spend probably like 5 to 10 seconds thinking about the following companies. So you have Airbnb, you have Uber, you have Groupon. So what do you think they have in common? I'm counting to 5. So there's no right or wrong question, or wrong answer to this, but to me, there's a few patterns that you can definitely see with them. First of all of them were founded in a time of crisis. And as you all know, like, crises have arisen in humanity for like centuries. So like it's a normal part of our life, and we're very obviously living through one right now, which is the global pandemic and all of the fallout that's coming after it. And it was innovation spurred by the difficulties of living in crisis. And what did that mean? It meant that these guys used really cool technology to use the world resources more efficiently. And this is very important, because I'm also going to touch upon the topic of sustainability in this presentation, which is obviously is something that everyone is talking about, but what that really is, like, we'll touch upon that a little bit later. And the third main factor that at least I will definitely stress is all of them created an excellent customer experience. So, you know, there's many questions about all of these companies. I understand that very, very well, but you can't deny one fact. If you hadn't had consumer love for them, they would not be where they are right now. So what can a founder learn? And by a founder, I mean anyone. It could be in B2C, in B2B, it could be completely unrelated to food tech, which is obviously, you know, the theme of tonight. But to me, there's 3 very, very critical lessons that I think we can all learn from. First of all, keep looking for broken systems and inefficiencies. They will always be there. Whatever develops further, whatever developed in the past, it really doesn't matter. So you'll see, you know, news all over the world of, you know, VCs investing in one specific area, like rapid grocery delivery. Maybe it's ride sharing. It could be anything else. It doesn't matter, as long as you actually realize that there's a real problem and it needs a solution, you're already on the right path. The second bit is, obviously, I will keep stressing this, excellent user experience is key. And this is where we kind of delve into the B2B territory, where, you know, we've had companies, suppliers, wholesalers, go like, oh, we just have a website, they can call us up. It really isn't the case anymore, even now. It will develop into the future even more. And finally, like, it's probably one of the most important bits, and something that we hold very dear as a founding team. You just have to keep a firm human hand on ethics. Whatever fancy technology you have behind, like, driving the actual platform, you need to have good ethics. This is why we've had very, very big stories coming out behind, you know, big tech. It's in a way, we're kind of I would say that we're living, it's my personal opinion, but that we're living in a bit of a time of disillusionment where, you know, we might not believe in tech as doing only good, and maybe that's fair. But what that means to me is that, yes, tech has the potential to resolve a lot of human problems. It's just how, it's all about how you control it. And let's very briefly talk about sustainability, because I keep getting this question, as like, we're a pre-seed startup, and I keep getting this question from potential investors, and they go like, okay, so are you, you know, a startup that just, you know, is focused on food waste, eliminating the food waste from the world, or are you trying to give something else? I think the answer is more complex, but I really do hope, like from this presentation, to bring a slightly fresher take on all of this, because I do think that sustainability in the current world environment, and I don't mean literally CO2 or anything like that, I do think that sustainability is really efficiency in disguise. And I'm going to say a few controversial things here, and please feel free to, you know, bring this up in the Q&As later. But I'm going to say that I firmly believe that businesses, however you frame them, are out there to make money. Like, that's always been the case. And yes, you have CSR, corporate social responsibility. Yes, you have all of the flashy campaigns around, you know, proper sourcing and being ethical, and like, you know, the theme. It's not really about that. Yes, you have to be sustainable, but again, it's not about greenwashing. And greenwashing is literally what, ticking a box saying that we've planted 100 trees and all of a sudden, you know, 10 of our factories, some are very unsustainable with very unsustainable workforce, are suddenly okay. It's not about that. In my mind, and I would like, you know, basically to keep this as one of the main takeaways, is that a profitable business taking care of all stakeholders, and by stakeholders I mean shareholders, employees, the environment around, is sustainable by design. So I think this point is actually quite important, and it is slightly, very, very slightly different to, you know, the usual, oh my God, the world is burning, we need to do something about it, let's invest another 10 million, you know, whatever currency you like, into a flyering campaign that's going to produce more waste. So I do think that there's this golden middle that actually unites all of these actually really nice things. And moving on to B2B, I would also like to stress a few key points. So these are the kind of my observations, and these are from myself looking at my experiences at different companies, which were more consumer focused, but also looking at the dynamics of B2B companies. So B2B replicates B2C with a bit of a delay. So if you think of companies like Salesforce, this is exactly what they're doing. So they are providing a service that's easier and easier to use for the employees. They've created a platform that is actually great because, first of all, like what's in the current environment, you have to get employee buy-in. It has to be easy to use because, you know, if a business decides to get a platform or use any type of software, any kind of service that's difficult to use, you know, the employees are going to hate it, and it's going to cause really bad company morale and more. And like, personally, I'm quite happy about it. You know, the employees are demanding more, and I think it's only fair to, you know, keep staff happy because, quite frankly, everyone deserves decent software. My second point would be B2B is the new investment battleground, which is something you can definitely understand just looking at key stats, looking at investment in B2B businesses, in B2B marketplaces, which is a lot closer to the specific kind of specific bits about Understock Me. Like, we've seen a lot of attention, and we know it's coming, and it's only gonna escalate. So, and finally, my final point would be, that B2B companies will compete between each other using the exact same. They're going to compete on user experience. It's going to be all about the interface. It's going to be even about the love of the brand. Employees need to be bought in, and it's not enough anymore to just take care of your bottom line as a business when you contract anyone else to take care of, I don't know, your inventory management or sourcing or buying. You just really need to focus on these things. So very briefly, and I'm quite aware that I haven't actually touched the details of B2B in food, but this is what we've learned as a company operating in this particular area. So first of all, oh my God, the food industry is in dire need of innovation, and I'm sure like pretty much the reason why we're having this conversation right now, why we're having so many speakers, is because we understand it. So even in developed markets, and I'll go back to that example where a major supplier in the UK says that they can't donate food, well, because it's too difficult. It is ludicrous, and it's something that needs fixing. Number two would be just us facing the challenge of changing the B2B consumer behavior. And again, this loops back to what I said previously. You're building for humans, you're building for employees. It's first, there's a few more bits in here. The first being like you're working with an old industry, so you're working across all of the different demographics. So you have your mom and pop shops basically that have been there for decades. How do you, for example, convince them to source to a more ethical supplier, or to like actually not drive to the wholesaler, which is the usual behavior at the moment, and actually get something in a more efficient way, in a more sustainable way? This is something that any startup in B2B in food tech really needs to think about. And I'm sure, you know, if you take someone like Deliveroo or Uber Eats, perhaps, of course, they've encountered this, but, you know, there's so much more to do rather than just consumer food delivery. And it's a very interesting problem to solve, because, you know, maybe you have to do in-person sales, maybe you have to, you know, call them up, something that is different from, you know, putting up online ads, because you have to figure out those channels. And as with any startup, it's all about testing, experimenting, being lean. Like nothing changes, but it's just very interesting when you apply this to basically to quite an old industry that hasn't seen much innovation apart from very specific areas in the late years. And finally, and this is something that it could be like one of the most important points, because it keeps happening every time we keep hearing this from every single, you know, restaurant, cafe, chef, anyone working in the food industry. The service experience just needs to be fantastic. They want Amazon for food. They want everything to be one click. And you know what? It's not like we don't have the tech to build that. We do. It's just about understanding that you're not building a B2B enterprise piece of software. Yeah, maybe it might need to be a lot closer to a consumer app like Amazon, or, you know, if you look at Facebook, or like anything you have on your phone. This is where B2B is moving, and something that we understand very closely. And I'm just going to leave you with three main takeaways, and it's something that we understand. Hopefully, you know, some other people understand as well, but it's built for humans. Guys, if you're developing something for B2B, you know, don't put on a shitty interface. Like, build something that is appealing, build something that's easy to use, because this is where focus is shifting. It's all going to be about not the CEO deciding that, oh, this product is 20% cheaper. No, it's going to be about, you know, employees very loudly protesting about the crappy system they have to use. Number two would be solve real problems, and hopefully, you know, that's what we're doing, what we do. There's millions of those around the world in the food industry, most definitely. So as long as you have those two together, money will follow. And what do I mean by that? First of all, you'll get revenues, as long as you really put the thinking together, and as long as you keep the ethics in mind and everything else that I've mentioned during this presentation, you know what? You will have no problem getting the right money from the right investors. And that's a whole other conversation, but hopefully with these three, I will leave you with some inspiration, I hope. And with that in mind, I will say thank you. And as a company, we're always open to collaboration. We're always open to speaking to people in the industry or even slightly outside of the industry. So my contact details are on the screen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Herman. Very, very insightful, very passionate. I'm so glad that you brought things out to a little bit of a more higher level lens and, brought in some parallels and tie-ins with larger tech industry trends, etc. Verticals, food tech is no exception, but it's nice to be explicitly reminded of these sorts of things sometimes. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
I would now like to welcome to the floor our next speaker, Gianlorenzo DeSantis, Industry Liaison and Operations Executive at Krover. Gianlorenzo has a keen passion for meeting the complexities of the agri-food system and for improving the efficiency of its value chain through innovation in all forms. He holds an MSc in food marketing from the University College Cork. In addition, he focuses on the topics of consumer behavior, supply chain innovations, and novel foods. Recently participating in the research summer school, Insects as Food and Feed. He is here to speak to us today about the need for middle stream technological innovation for a sustainable food system. Gianlorenzo, fantastic to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Very much. So I'm going to talk today about the importance of middle stream solution and the drivers that that are behind them. So we are all aware that we need a systematic change to the way that we produce food, the way we buy and we eat food. So if we want to, for creating a sustainable agricultural food system, while still not exhausting the planet resource and in the long term nourishing an increasing world population. To support these changes in Europe, the main plan is to employ what is being called the farm to fork strategy. This strategy, or better, a bundle of strategies, aim to address these challenges and deliver co-benefits for the environment, health, society, and economy. Around 10 billion euro have been dedicated to research and innovation, so to accelerate this transition to a sustainable and inclusive food system. However, these strategies are at the same time bottom and top heavy. That's to say that consumer, as much as producer, are put at the core of this comprehensive food agenda. On the consumer or on the producer side, most of innovation falls under the umbrella of precision agriculture. They can take many forms of shapes. You can have autonomous GPS-enabled tractors and sprayers, but also drone and small field robots with added machine vision and analytics for weed control and precision irrigation. Array of sensors for plant and soil health, and yield monitoring and prediction based on satellite data. On the consumer side, the fork part of it, there are a lot of technologies that focus on behavioral changes, improved consumer choice, and novel purchasing method, as well as novel food and plant-based formulation, and exponential growth in the interest of personalized nutrition, which is something that other speeches today have touched on. In my opinion, there is as much attention needs to be given also what is like to call middle stream solution. That if we look at the entirety of the agri-food chain makes the bulk of the system component. If the strategies, the farm to fork strategy wants to be successful, they need to put the same attention to the two parts of the chain as much as the fork and the farm. So in middle streams technology, this is the definition I give, and I include in this definition all those novel technologies that are applicable to all the in-between steps that ensure that food reaches people's table. So let's say from farm gate to retail. These include blockchain, IoT solution, machine learning, and quality and environmental sensing technologies. This can improve the safety, the efficiency, and sustainability of the agri-food value chain and increase consumer trust. Now, another term that is used and often used to categorize these technologies is food supply innovation, food supply chain innovation. But in my opinion, this term is very limited and has very narrow connotations. So I personally prefer using the term middle stream. It's just a little semantic difference, but the latter better capture the interrelation of all the elements in the system. The drive for the adoption of these technologies is multifaceted and has both upstream and downstream components. First, there is the push derived from the need from the producers, because long gone are the times when a product was out of the gate, out of the farm gate, and therefore out of the mind. Producers want to have more visibility of the whole chain, so to create more stronger connection with the end customers. In this way, data can trace back to them, so they can plan better the growing season and be more prepared to seize opportunity of consumer trends, but also to protect themselves against disruption in the food system. This is reflected practically in the continuous and rapidly increasing verticalization of agri-food chains. And at the forefront of this process, there are agri-cooperatives, which are putting enormous effort and investment into innovation and integration between all parts of the chain. Also, agricultural producers don't want to see all this effort that they're putting in innovation and sustainability get squandered by an inefficient supply chain, as every little bit of food that gets wasted means also that they're wasting all the inputs and our work that they put into producing it. This also aligns with the need of the players in the middle portion of the chain, logistic, traders, and processor, which have an increased demand for automation, improved the data stream, labor efficiency, and transparency, which is often driven by policy. The COVID-19 crisis has highlighted the need for a more resilient agri-food chain, and we witnessed sudden changes in consumer habits that disrupted value chain and logistic operation, and the impacts of this we are still assessing. This is highly emphasizes some of the inefficiency of the and shortcomings of this portion of the value chains, such as lack of technologies and labor volatility. So technological solutions are key to reinforcing the resilience of the system. For example, one substantial upset of the farm to fork strategy is the reduction of pesticides and pest control substances, which led the majority of food producers in Europe, food producer and traders, Food Producer and Traders Association in Europe, to produce a bundle of joint letters in which they highlighted their need for substantial investment in research, innovation, and in the development of new tools throughout the agri-food chain, as well as the necessity to keep investment flowing into this area. On the consumer side, basically all the food consumer reports and researches in the last probably 5 years or more put a lot of emphasis on, in a way or another, on the fact that consumers are increasingly wanting sustainability in the product. However, they are also getting more and more dubious about shady sustainability claims, and they are becoming more aware and more contempt about greenwashing. So sustainability and transparency need to go both hand in hand, so that they can be the sustainability claim can be substantiated with proof. The solution that is currently gaining a lot of attention now is to provide the transparency through various labeling system that certifies sustainability, impact, social responsibility. But I have a background in consumer behavior. I can tell you that the last thing that consumers want is yet another label. There is already an oversaturation of labels and certification, and label fatigue is a real occurrence. It's something that happens. And what consumers are asking for is for a whole chain transparency that goes beyond of the limited heuristic that a label can give. This is easier said than done because of the complex nature of the agri-food chain. While preparing for this presentation, I was thinking how to categorize these middle stream technologies. A simple solution could be dividing them in digital versus hardware. But then I realized that this is a false simplification, because all these technologies mixes to various degrees these two domains. So a better way to understand them is to put them on a digital hardware continuum. On one side, we have predominantly digital technologies such as AI and machine learning for forecasting and improving the efficiency of operation, digital system for the whole chain quality assurance and sustainability checks, blockchain both for traceability, but also for streamlining contractual flows and transactions. One example here is the Convactis initiative, which is backed by the biggest player in the grain trade, which aims to replace, in their words, outdated, inefficient post-trade processes with a secure blockchain-based digital platform. In the middle, we have hardware and digital mixes, such as the IoT network solutions that makes 4.0 food production a reality. There can be novel sensors that are being implemented at all steps of the distribution. An example here is a miniaturized application of NIR sensor for both inline monitoring, but also for handheld device. And other examples are smart tags and labeling, which not only trace the food product, but also monitor and assess its freshness and quality. One example of this is what our friends at Sensor are doing. They have these tags that can trace in the cold chain, food cold chain, from production to shelves, a food product. Then on the other side of the scale, there are robotics automation systems that are applied not only in what are now almost traditional areas like logistic and warehouse automation, but also new areas such as drone used for plant monitoring or deliveries, or robotic monitoring system for harsh environment, like what we are trying to develop at Crover. As we said, we cannot obtain true transparency if all the steps of the chain are not visible. This is what we are trying to work on Crover, to expose those hidden steps. In this case, of the grain supply chain, they are represented of the grain storage phases. Grains are the cornerstone of our global food system, and they are key inputs for almost all the other food subsystems. And storage is an essential middle stream stage. It happens at every step of the chain, and it ensures safety and quality of the grains, but it's still the post-harvest phase with the most losses. And however, there's still no way to monitor what happens inside grain bulls while they're still stuck in storage, making silos and sheds like a black box of grain. Our solution is the Crover, is the world's first underground drone. We're developing it with the aim to autonomously scan and sample grains in bulk storage, so to provide early detection of potential spoilage, allowing grain storage operators to reduce losses and maintain quality while improving the health and safety of grain storage operators, who will no longer require to physically walk on dangerous grain bulls. The system that we are developing not only will be able to keep the crops and investments safe by monitoring grain, but also we want to enable grain operators to pass the trust, sharing this data along the chain, supplying their buyers and assurance schemes with the confidence of the safety of their operation. This data flow up and down of the chain brings me to my next point, which is the major barrier of middle stream technology adoption. So without a common language, this flow of data upstream and downstream gets filtered, blocked, and doesn't reach all the actors involved or the consumer. So what we need is harmonization. Without harmonization among the many components that build such a complex system, also defined as system interoperability, pieces of the chain cannot talk to each other, thereby endangering one of the main benefits of this huge amount of data, which is the possibility to exploit it on multiple sources and providing integrated analysis of complex phenomena. So to identify shortcomings and bottlenecks in the value chain that needs to be addressed. Thankfully, there is some awareness from policymakers in this field, and there are a few attempts to solve this issue. Hopefully, we will be able to witness soon some proper data harmonization framework in the near future. Another key point is data security and data protection. And data ownership also. Our data ownership is our sore spot for middle stream technology adoption. And not only the technology developed in this field needs to have an extremely high level of data protection and security built in, but it also needs to be very clear about how this data is processed and for what purposes. However, there's still quite a strong reluctance from many value chain actors to share the data. And probably the only solution to this barrier is to create more integrated, shorter supply chain that thrives on trust and collaboration. There are also further barriers to middle stream technologies, but these are barriers that are not just specific to this technology, but they're shared in general with all the other type of food innovation, which is preparedness for technological change, part of the organization, benefit awareness, communication, know-how and skill, and benefit and cost relation consideration. Even if there is not too much discussion regarding what we talk about until now in the public domain, luckily the investment environment seems to have acknowledged this middle stream solution needs. In 2021, we witnessed a surge of investment in these technologies. And while e-grocery was still at the best funded category, middle stream technologies were just seconds with overall values of $3 billion. Hopefully, this will translate also in an increased public awareness and discussion of these seemingly hidden steps of the agri-food value chain. So to conclude, I'm hopeful that in the near future, systematic adoption of innovation at every step of the value chain and all parts of the agri-food system will contribute to the same goal. It will create a situation where whatever choice a consumer can make, regardless of their food decision, will be a sustainable one. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to get in contact with any of you if you have questions. I'm probably going to need to run now. I will not be able to participate in the panel later, but the great folks at DKA can collect questions, and I'm sure they will send it to me if you have anyone. And you can also contact me on my contacts here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gianlorenzo. I will ensure that any Q&A questions that come through to you are forwarded duly to you and relayed back to those who were asking today. So thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here.
Likewise, the pleasure is all ours. I would now like to welcome to the floor our very own Julia Bondaruk, Vice President of Business Development at Deep Knowledge Group. Julia has a wide range of experience in business development and building mutually beneficial relationships with customers. Food tech is also a particular passion of hers, in addition to her more general passion for deep tech and emerging technologies. And today she's going to be speaking to us about investments in the food tech industry with a specific focus on optimizing operation models. Julia, pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Hello, Franco. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. And I just wanted to start with just saying my thank you in general for the organizers of this event, for all the participants. It's a great pleasure to have you all on board, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'll share my screen now real quick. And as Franco said, I'm gonna just give you an introduction into what we do and why we do it. So as Franco said, my name is Julia. I am a Vice President of Business Development in the Deep Knowledge Group. I focus on multiple industries, and I'm based in the Middle East, so that's my primary region of operation. I'm based in Dubai, and I'm really happy to share the general strategy of the company, how we are related to the food tech, and why we chose this direction to begin with. So Deep Knowledge Group is a consortium of companies and analytical subsidiaries covering the general players to the longevity aspect. So our main focus is the longevity industry and anything that takes part in it, such as agent analytics, femtech, COVID analytics, pharmaceuticals, health tech, so on and so forth. And one of the recent additions is the food tech, naturally. So we are a global organization with a variety of partners across the globe. Our headquarters is in London, and we have strategically placed offices and partnerships in Hong Kong and Toronto and San Francisco, Zurich, and so on, and soon to be one in Dubai as well, where I'm based. And this allows us an opportunity to partner up with the people and organizations who give not only insights, but provide valuable feedback to our analytics that we produce, and allows us an opportunity to have a global scale and overview with all the reports and analytics that we create and the industries that we cover. So in addition to that, it's a great pleasure to be featured in multiple publications globally, big names such as Forbes and Financial Times and CNN, who use our analytics and mention us in their publications. So it gives us a feedback in terms of we are seen, we are heard, and our work is not just there to exist. It actually provides a good concept for whoever is exploring opportunities in a specific industry or is looking for new information and more deep dives, because all our analytics are lengthy. Those are very insightful, and our reports are a great, we are really proud of the data and analytics capabilities that our organization has. So if we look at the structure, it's based on 4 pillars. First of those being financial activities, our analytical subsidiaries, as mentioned before, and nonprofits and media. So I am a representative of purely analytical subsidiaries. We cover industries of interest, as mentioned before, anything that plays role in the aging, analytics in the longevity, such as pharmaceuticals, neurotechnology, AI, anything deep tech is the major area of focus. And it's a great pleasure to have food tech as an addition, being a very strong, steady growth kind of representative of those industries. And moving on to that, we are just releasing today one of our first reports covering the global food tech market. It's a great pleasure to have the representative of companies that we covered here today presenting their solutions. And if you look at the overview of companies by category, we see a very obvious dominance by agricultural technology. No surprise there. Closely followed by food science and retail. So our analytical capabilities allow us to draw comparisons between those companies and presenting a very comprehensive overview of the whole industry. If you look at this mind map, it doesn't represent all of the companies covered, which are more than 400 actually, and 800 investors. That allowed us a really, really tense and insightful comparison, as mentioned. You can also see that it's mainly divided by few major markets in terms of region and country. So a very dense population of food tech related startups and companies situated in North America and the United States, followed closely by United Kingdom and Israel, which was made obvious today by some of our speakers and representatives of the region. So if you look at the division by funding, it's very obvious that the COVID-related situation shaped this funding distribution in such a way where the delivery companies took the majority of the funding. And if you look at the top 3 companies represented in the statistics, they hold more than $5 billion of investment, making it the giant in terms of food tech related company. Steady growth is a big representative of the food tech market in general, and again shaped in a big way by the COVID-related situation. And post-pandemic direction is a growth of delivery services and just general direction of improvement of the categories that are affecting human life on the regular basis, on the daily basis. Big jump, and the projection is reflecting that, the steady growth over multiple years ahead of us. The biggest outcome, I believe, and one of a few upsides to the pandemic situation are just a view of the companies and corporations that are directed at the proactive approach towards the systems and structure that historically are dominant in the food industry. So looking onto the improvement of the human situation, not only in terms of the consumer, but also the workforce. So creating more safe work environments, creating more safe transactions and general packaging. Every aspect of this delivery process, for instance, has been improved in order to condemn and contain the situation, which is a great example of the proactiveness. As mentioned by multiple speakers before me, the food technology lacks the innovation from time to time, so it's a great step in the right direction, I believe. So we're seeing an increase in interest in the contactless delivery and contactless payment options, which is also a positive aspect, I believe, and hopefully soon in the post-pandemic world. So all those things are greatly improving the situation and highly affected by the food technology industry. I also want to give a heads up to all our attendees about the FoodTech landscape overview Q4 that's coming up, packed with useful insights, overview of the industry, general financing of it, whoever is on the fence in terms of introducing new technology, creating a solution, should be really hopeful and very optimistic about this industry. A great focus we are placing as an organization into this, and really excited about the developments of it in the soonest time. And it was a great pleasure for me to be here. I will continue leading the process of exploring opportunities for our organization in the realm of food technology. Our main goal is to create an atmosphere and opportunity to connect different players of it and give support where support is needed, whether it's a media platform, financing, any exposure. And we're really open to any suggestions and are looking for collaborations on a constant basis. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope you had a great time and a lot of information, a lot of benefit gained from this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. Always a pleasure. I would now like to welcome to the floor our final speaker for today, Dr. David Kanar, founder, chairman, and chief science officer at Nutrition Innovation. David is also the inventor of NuCane, and Nutrition Innovation's technology is aimed at empowering the industry to produce, among other things, NuCane, a range of natural sugars at industrial scale as healthier sugar reduction and replacement in food and beverage brands. In addition to that, David holds over 50 family patents in both food and medical technology and has a fair degree of international recognition as a leading expert on food science and nutrition. Today, David is here to share his insights on the use of food as medicine. Dr. Kanar, it's a pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Franco, thank you. Firstly, thanks for having me. I am very grateful for the opportunity to have listened to the speakers before me, and the topic is one that's it's a fascinating about the technology revolution in food and making food as our medicine. And so that's the topic that I'm going to unfold a little bit. Some of the things that we've been finding and researching go back some time, but making sugar the solution to the sugar problem is where we've really been focusing, and we've been passionate about that for some time. Some of the things we've been finding and interested in along the way is that the sugar cane in making white sugar, of course, leave a lot of the interesting compounds behind as waste streams. And one of them is a very powerful source of natural polyphenols. Interestingly, these polyphenols finding ways now into microbiome research. And as we concentrate these compounds and then add them to foods and use them as supplements and what have you, the important contribution they have to the to the microbiome and to our health is becoming quite interesting. The microbiome is becoming a very important part of future health and nutrition. Some of these compounds that are naturally occurring, these polyphenol profiles are hydroxycinnamonic acids, phenolic acids, flavonoids, and important compounds. They're often linked up to cellulosic and lignin backbones, but these are some of the compounds. They're quite prolific. Polyphenols in plants are some 6,500, but these are some of the main groups that we find, and particularly concentrated in sugar. Interestingly, these are the compounds that are affecting the microbiome. They're also making way now into methanogenic type of applications as well, with reducing methane production in animals. So it's interesting that they're finding ways into that. I'll skip that slide in the interest of time. This is one of the concentrates that we've been developing, and very powerful form of these particular concentrates, the phenols, particularly high protein, but also contains a lot of the minerals. So there's no extraction; it's just simply concentrating these waste streams and using them in various applications. One of them, which is interesting, and this is where food is medicine is becoming, I think, more interesting, is that these compounds are quite powerful. In diabetes, one of the things that, or one of the actions of these particular compounds, you can see here that sucrose is metabolized into forming glucose and fructose in our bodies. It goes through an enzymatic metabolic process, and these particular phenols actually slow this metabolic pathway down, because they actually block the enzymes that are responsible for liberating the glucose and sucrose out of, the glucose and fructose out of the sucrose. Interestingly, they also, and this is published literature, this is our work also agrees with it, of course, but this is published literature. As glucose and fructose is liberated and transported across the basolateral membrane in our gut, there's two proteins and that are required for transport, and these particular compounds actually slow those transport mechanisms down. And so that's one of the ways that that these particular compounds are important. These polyphenols actually lower the glycemic response and help us in dealing with diabetes and reducing the risk of obesity. As I said before, these are powerful compounds, and interestingly, sugar cane is not necessarily known for these. There's other compounds, green tea. I was thinking about some the other day, cocoa, chocolate, of course, green coffee. These are compounds that are naturally occurring, the same compounds in sugar, of course. When we use these compounds in some of our work, and others literature, other published literature as well, is that the glycemic index of these particular compounds are actually they're quite powerful and lower the glycemic response quite significantly. This is some of the dose response work that we've done, and so 25 to 48 or 50 milligrams of these compounds per 100 grams of carbohydrate actually reduce the glycemic response by up to 50%. And so they're quite important to leave in foods, obviously, if they're a natural source, but also add these to foods to be able to reduce that glycemic response and help in diabetes risk reduction. I've compared this, so you can see the structure of a compound here, a prescription compound or a drug arquebus, and it's very similar, excuse me, very similar chemistry. But interestingly, the drug compound causes some significant side effects, and the natural compounds do not. So it's interesting that our food can be a medicine in this particular instance. This is a good example of how we can use the food in a very powerful way. When you leave these compounds in food, one of the early developments that we had was leaving them in sugar. So instead of extracting them out, removing them and processing sugar to be completely white refined sugar, we leave them in foods. And here's an example of a product, Better Brown in Malaysia, now over 11 million kilos of this particular product sold. So this is our technology to leave the compounds in the sugar so that they naturally reduce the glycemic response. So making sugar the solution to the sugar problem, if you like. So further to that, I thought I'd touch on this bit of technology that we've developed as well. Again, this is this technology revolution, and that making sugar the solution to the sugar problem. One of the technologies that we've developed is actually looking at reducing the bulk density of sugar. So this allows, and so instead of a full dense crystal, if you like, it's almost a hollow product, a honeycomb type of product, which I'll show you a picture in a second. So scale up and development of this particular technology is completed. We were lucky to finish it in Europe just before COVID hit. And so other than that, we've been locked here in Australia ever since. But the technology is lowering the bulk density or restructuring the sugar. You can see bottom left-hand corner of that particle, it looks like a honeycomb particle. So the particles now are not a solid crystal. So you can see on the right-hand side there, so 30 grams of white sugar and then 15 grams of this particular product now, Nucane Life. So the same volume, but less than half the sugar. So it's an easy and simple way to be able to, just through some modern technology, to be able to reduce the bulk density of the sugar. So one of the problems in sugar reduction, of course, in foods is that if you take the sugar out, it's an inexpensive bulk filler. And so we've focused on making the sugar the bulk filler still, but obviously reducing the amount. So here's an example of leaving the product in, or adding the product into to chocolate. You can see on the left-hand side, the powders mixed in with the cocoa solids and the butter, and quickly mixes in because these are less than 30 micron particles. They maintain the full bulk density in sugar, and so you can see scanning electron microscopy shots there. These particles hold their bulk in a fat matrix, and so then function as bulk fillers. So the flexibility of this technology is really about reducing, sucrose is one of the examples, but it's any sweetener. We've used many sweeteners, raw sugars, brown sugars, maple syrups, rice malt syrups, all sorts of compounds we can use there. So the technology is quite agnostic to any sweetener. And then the substrates are quite broad as well. We can use many substrates, proteins, intense sweeteners, fibers even, and add them to the substrate and get down to quite low levels to make the technology affordable. When we use these particular compounds, these powders, because they're amorphous sweeteners have really been traditionally important in the confectionery industry because they're a lot sweeter, but they're very expensive to manufacture. And so, making them the way we do with just traditional spray drying techniques, the particles are smaller, and so and you can see in the spider diagram, this is with whey protein. You get quite a sweet product, sweeter than the comparable white refined sugar. So there's some of the advantages of using this particular technology. You can get significant sugar reduction. It's quite affordable. We can get down to, when we say 2 to 3 times the price of sugar, you're using half the amount. So it's generally a wash within the product, and then protein levels, and then various proteins we can use, and then the product, as we said, is scalable, and that technology has been completed. Some of the categories that are open are just listed there. Some of them have been taken, and we're just going to market with opening more of them up as we finished the technology development and the applications work, and those open categories now are finished and ready to go. So that gives us, that gives an overview. I tried to shave it down, Franco, in the interest of time, to be able to allow more questions. But thank you again for the opportunity to be able to share this bit of technology and how we're revolutionizing the industry. Thank you.
Our pleasure entirely, Dr. Cannon and Dr. Kanar, sorry. And it was a rather comprehensive presentation despite that shaving down. So we appreciate
Thank you. Pleasure.
So we've gone fairly over time, and I quite appreciate the patience of our speakers and our attendees. But I would now like to welcome all of the speakers to the floor to turn on their cameras and mics and join us for a Q&A and roundtable discussion, which I will be moderating. We're going to keep it a little bit shorter than originally anticipated due to the high density of interesting presentations today. So I suppose that I'll open it up with a rather general question open to all of our speakers today. So it's very clear based on the shape and nature of the discussions that we've had today that the range of technologies and especially innovative technologies that are disrupting and making their way into the food industry is increasing, both in terms of the depth of their penetration and the diversity of technologies. A very clear thread was the impact of digitization and AI in the industry. Would it be fair to say that AI is perhaps the leading driver of change across the board, speaking generally? And do any of you feel that there are other maybe second place front runners besides AI that are really driving disruption these days?
I will open and say that while we do AI CPD, in our case, AI stands for Agile Integrative Computational Protein Design, but actually computational protein design has a deep AI component, or actually more a ML. And I think that the move from AI to ML here is important because artificial intelligence by itself has limited capabilities, and by the robustness of the machine learning part, where you have the bootstrapping and the understanding of the data, you move to a different phase. And in my field, when I began my career, there were less than 3,000 structures. Today, you have so much more. And the protein data banks, so the data itself is booming. And one example for that is the DeepMind company, which was purchased by Google, has revolutionized structure prediction possibilities using ML. And this enables a whole new realm of using the data. Likewise, if we go to precision fermentation, then while it is an old technology that has received a lot of new attention with all the CRISPR on one hand, but also the time it took for strain development, you have companies such as Ginkgo Bioworks and Culture Biosciences and many others that implement robotics, and then the cost of sequencing DNA and writing DNA has went down so much that we are simply in a totally new phase of things. And from the other side, if we want to expand it to the entire food tech space, well beyond precision fermentation, we have a very simple observation. The number of companies in a supermarket have increased significantly. The relative share of the 10 companies that rule 50% of the food and beverage market is actually going down, because it is easier for new companies to come in, whether it is to the supermarket, and even more so if you use digital and social media and ways which you actually don't need, and the entire concept of a supermarket is changing. So definitely this is changing very much, both as to the technology, and following COVID-19, there is also a change of our perception of how to do our purchases, even how to work doing this by Zoom and so on. So definitely a revolution.
Thank you, Ilan. It's a very interesting point that you mentioned, the let's call it demonopolization of the industry being driven by the increasingly democratizing force of AI. AI is both increasingly capable and versatile, but also increasingly accessible to smaller scale operations. And the same could be said about digitization, et cetera. So very well said, a great point. David.
Yeah, Franco, it's a good question, because what we're seeing with our multinational partners, Foss and Schneider, is this revolution into near-infrared scanning, and I love the Krover presentation also, just the analytical tools, and I think that we're going to see more of those in food, to be able to get more standardization, more consistency, particularly as blockchain enters into what we're doing, so that those sort of analytical technologies will become very important. We use, for example, scanning, near-infrared scanning technology, to be able to just monitor the processes during sugar processing, to be able to retain these polyphenols in the sugar. And so I think that those sort of technologies will become more important and more used.
Very well said. Zach, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. So I firstly certainly join Elon in terms of the importance of AI as far as the deep mind kind of narrative is concerned, and the use of data, which is going to be one of the most important things going forward, because data is accumulating and being able to process it in a automated way is important. So it's certainly going to be a new world in terms of that. But what I would also add to the components that we see are developing aggressively also is a blockchain, and in our industry is very much about traceability and the ability for precise verification and for analytical purposes. So the blockchain is certainly something that stands out in our industry, and also as it connects to NFTs. So that's really still an understated area, because it's currently looked upon as something of an artistic kind of narrative, and it's all about art. But I think we're underestimating how quickly it's going to evolve into many other narratives in the next few years. And the one other thing that I would add to it, which really is an all-encompassing thing, because it's going to integrate a lot of these technologies, is what some call meta, or you can call it VR, because ultimately, as we as consumers, as influencers, as business people, went from physical meetings into Zoom world, kind of through a very smooth transition. I don't think many expected that. I think is very much what's going to happen between now and the next few years, that we're going to transition into this meta world very smoothly, and so this connection between offline and online is going to be quite impressive. So AI, blockchain, and meta / VR is what we're seeing is going to be the key drivers.
I couldn't agree more. The metaverse was certainly coming, but the COVID pandemic certainly helped speed that along, certainly with the melting of boundaries between online and physical, etc. And I'm glad that you mentioned blockchain, because that was one of my next questions. Both generally and with regards to NFTs, it's true that it's a rather versatile infrastructure that I think we'll see broaden beyond creative and artistic industries into the sorts of things you're talking about. Indeed. Of course, Julia. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I totally agree with Elon. Of course, you cannot underestimate the impact of AI playing the role in any industry that it's involved in. But I just wanted to add that it's only as good as it can be in addition to a human being who's creating it. So I feel like AI is playing an amazing supporting role in any business that it touches. We need to follow the lead, but because of the gap between the traditional food tech industries and the very advanced digitally ones, we see a progression, but I feel like it's very fair to recognize the long way ahead of us. So AI is great and we're on the right path, but it's just in a very baby stage for some parts of the industry.
Very well said, but clearly not as baby as I'm sure a lot of our viewers and attendees might have thought. AI is the quintessential accelerator and democratizer, and it is very apparent that food tech is no exception to that. So yes, that's fantastic. I would also, I'd like to present another general question to all of our viewers on how different trends in human behavior in particular are shaping the industry. So it's very clear at this point that technology is a huge driver of paradigm shifts in approaches and business models within this industry. I would assume that the same can be said about human behavior. And of course, it's a cyclical, reciprocal relationship there. But I'm thinking in terms of, things like health is new wealth. The COVID pandemic has really crystallized in people's minds the notion of health as an asset class unto itself. People are, to a large extent, changing a lot of their habits. Healthy eating, of course, being the most obvious symptom of that. So both with specific regard to that, and more generally in terms of human behavior, how do you feel the human side of things, as opposed to the technological side of things, is shaping disruption in food tech?
You cannot help saying that one of the clear examples of that is sugar overconsumption. Sugar overconsumption is a long-term epidemic, which actually has more victims than COVID-19, but it has been only in the last very few years that things have took over, and actually politicians are favoring sugar tax because there is a demand that comes from consumers. Actually, a known secret of the industry that's a huge sweet beverage industry is going double-digit down in the last decade, because people are not willing to just have tasty, they want to have tasty and healthy, and people are beginning to understand that there is here a cyclical thing where on one hand, absurd, on one hand, there is a huge investment in health, and on the other hand, food, and there were here more than one talk about food being thy medicine. Hippocrates said it already as a father of medicine. And we see it with a growing pressure on sugar overconsumption. When I opened the MI, there were less than 20 countries with sugar tax. Today you have over 40, and that's not taking into account all the places where you have just labeling rather than sugar tax, and states within countries which added sugar tax. And this is just one example. COVID-19 made us much more conscientious of what we put into our stomach, and also much more about preventive measures that are needed beyond just treating the disease after it comes about. So I think there is a huge change. There are several small companies, Califia Farms, Nix Yogurt, I can go on and on with names, that just rode on this notion of sustainability and of healthfulness. And actually in Israel, a small company called SodaStream was bought by PepsiCo for $3.2 billion just because it is more sustainable and more healthy. Actually, the former food CTO of SodaStream is now our VP for food technology and heads our flavor house. So I think really there is a huge trend, tectonic movement, which we are just beginning to grasp, and has very big changes that will appear. And from the other side, you see the open innovation in big companies. When I opened the MI, open innovation in multinationals was something not easy, and many expected to get free samples, were not willing to pay for it. And now there is an active, proactive work of big companies to try and embrace know-how from small companies. And just as an example, the EAT Food organization, which has EU funding, we have two consortiums, one with PepsiCo and Danone and the Technion, one with Maspex, VTT, University of London, University of Aarhus. And this is just the understanding of the European Union that you need such collaborations. And the last sentence, I'll say that we are going to see more Kodak moments. Dean Foods, as the biggest dairy in the United States, have went bankruptcy because they did not adapt to this new world.
Very well said. Yes, there's big changes going on in terms of I'll call it governmental commitment of optimizing population health. Big things happening in sort of the longevity space, which I'm a little bit more familiar with. But we're seeing that emerge as a very big trend, and I would expect food to play a very large part in that, because it's such a critical factor in terms of lifestyle associated mortality, life expectancy, health span, etc. David, did you have anything in particular to add to that?
Yeah, I think Alain's right. There's a lot of space now for just to follow consumer behavior, to continue and develop that a little bit more. I think we're seeing, forgive me because this is my age, but we lived through the fat, every fat was bad for you. And then all of a sudden there was this, there's good fats, bad fats. And now the consumers are very clear on, good fats and bad fats. And they've shaped choices and shaped the development and the technology. And I think we're seeing the same sort of thing now settled in sweeteners. That there's every sugar was bad for you, but I mean, a lot of our foods, carbohydrates are in a lot of our foods. There's a lot of natural sweeteners, and I think what we're seeing is the emergence of less processed, brown sugars, more natural intense sweeteners, like what Alain was saying before. I think that there's a real evolution in consumers choosing these less processed, less refined, and more natural options. And so we're seeing a dichotomy in the market. A lot of the big food companies are doing the same thing, choosing these less refined, more consumer-friendly options. It's an interesting trend to watch.
Indeed. Zach, I saw you unmuted yourself. Did you have something to add here?
Yes, absolutely. I certainly agree with all of the above. But as far as the human behavior is concerned, one other thing that we'll look at very closely in all our development is cultural shifts, and we have them regularly, obviously over decades, and these cultural shifts are very powerful impactors of a lot of changes and trends within the industry, not only ours, but just across board. And it's interesting because we observe that, one of the ongoing major shifts is, of course, as pointed out previously, is more conscious consumption. And we see this certainly in our industry being driven by technologies, because technologies are allowing our consumers to be more aware, to trace as far as is possible today, to what the product is all about, and how it impacts their health. But then we also see that it kind of the reverse of it, whereby these trends of the human kind of impact drive certain technologies. But one thing that also which hasn't been mentioned as far as the human behavior is concerned, that we're really paying attention to, is the fact that with the impact of technologies and the receding nature of human interaction, which is it seems that is here to stay. And certainly, to your point, none of these trends as far as we're concerned, have been changed by COVID, but they have been fast tracked. So it was kind of going there. It was very obvious, but it's been very much fast tracked. And so in terms of our industry, the consumption is significantly dropping, but it's starting to evolve into experience. And so kind of more aware, more educated consumption that is part of the experience is coming to the forefront, primarily for the very kind of complicated psychological reason, whereby emotion is really coming at a premium more and more so. And this is why when we look at the next 20, 30 years, and it's absolutely clear that technology is going to play the key role, it's almost unimaginable that consumer brands will not, at least those that are willing to thrive, that will not be fully in control of certain technologies that allow them to be direct to consumer facing, versus the current traditional infrastructure, which is very complicated through multi-layered distribution channels and so on. So emotion and becoming at a premium is really making incredible impacts in terms of consumer behavior, as far as we can see, for sure.
Yeah, very well said. And even within the more narrow scope of what you were talking about, emotions, etc., it's part and parcel with a very broad and common theme that I see here today, which is increasing personalization, precision, etc., all the way from branding through technology and beyond. So makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Zach. I wish that we had more time for additional questions, but alas, we've ran over. We had a very exciting, dense, insightful, and diverse, wide-ranging series of talks today. And I'd like to thank you all for bearing with us here, sticking around to participate in this panel discussion. And I think for all of our viewers, I will close today off with a few closing remarks. So a large thank you once again to all of our speakers and attendees for joining us today for Deep Knowledge Analytics Conference, the Technology Revolution, the food tech industry. A reminder and a note that everybody who's tuned in today will be receiving a follow-up email in the coming days containing the full day's recording, as well as individualized recordings of each speaker's talk. So stay tuned for that. And please keep your eye out at Deep Knowledge Analytics website, dka.global, for additional event announcements and invitations. This is our first foray into food tech, but I do not think that it will be our last. So please stay tuned there. And a final reminder of Deep Knowledge Analytics' most recent open access special analytical case study, Global Food Tech Landscape Overview 2021 Q4. That will be available, if not today, then very soon in the coming days, I would expect. So keep an eye out at www.dk.global for that. A large thank you to all of the contributors to that special analytical case study, many of whom we had present today. And above all else, thank you one and all for joining us today. It was exciting, insightful, diverse, and we very much hope to see you again very soon. Thank you.